Chapter 105. Mo Gao was similarly shocked. In his mind, a student that would be given to him must have entered through the back door, and had no future to develop, so he would waste time following him. Previously, he had spoken so much, but rather than saying that he was teaching Ling Han, it was more like he had been bored for too long, and wanted to pour out his heart's content. As for whether Ling Han could understand or not, he did not consider it at all. He never thought that Ling Han would really understand, and after digesting it, he very quickly formed a flash of sword chi. If it was only one flash of sword chi, he could accept it, but the problem was, Ling Han originally had 5 flashes of sword chi. 5 flashes of sword chi, what kind of concept was that? 3 flashes of sword chi could make one a ruler, and 5 flashes was a small accomplishment. He was definitely a genius, and possibly surpassed any of his peers in Rain Country, but why would such a genius be given to him to teach? Mo Gao really could not understand, but on second thought, he was very happy, because Ling Han was now his student. In the future, the higher his student's achievements, the more glory he would have. Teacher, there are some things I don't quite understand. Ling Han sheathed his sword, and asked Mo Gao for guidance. In terms of comprehension of martial art, he could be Mo Gao's grandmaster, but in terms of comprehension of sword arts, Mo Gao was above him. Firstly, Mo Gao had immersed himself in sword arts for more than 10 years, and secondly, he was indeed a genius in sword arts. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask, Mo Gao immediately said. It had been more than 10 years, and when had he ever been consulted by a student? Ling Han asked some questions, and Mo Gao immediately explained according to his own understanding. In the process, he was greatly enlightened. One had to know that although Ling Han did not spend much time on sword arts, the knowledge of a heaven-tier warrior was there for all to see, and the questions he asked all pointed to the core. Mo Gao kept saying yeah, oh, and his eyes grew brighter and brighter. He scratched his ears and cheeks, looking like he could not contain his joy. Unknowingly, it was already noon. He let out a long sigh and said, "Your natural talent in the sword Dao is even higher than mine, and I don't have the face to be your teacher. How about this, we'll be friends of the same generation and discuss each other." Ling Han shook his head and said, "In terms of sword Dao, Teacher Mo is indeed qualified to be my teacher. Even if I surpass Teacher Mo in sword Dao in the future, I will never forget Teacher Mo's kindness in teaching me today." Mo Gao sighed with emotion. To think that he would actually encounter such a talented student. Unfortunately, he did not have the qualifications to take Ling Han as his disciple. The relationship between teacher and student was only formed because of the academy. Hungry, Hunyo said pitifully as she pulled on Ling Han's clothes. Okay. Let's go eat." Ling Han excused himself from Mo Gao and left the academy. He randomly found a restaurant, ordered a sumptuous meal, and ate with Hunyo. He had to be fast enough to eat with this little girl. Otherwise, the dishes would be gone in 2 or 3 bites. A single meal actually cost over 1,000 silver coins, causing Ling Han to exclaim that he had no money to spend. This was because the imperial city's expenses were high enough, and the little girl had too much of a glutton. He had to concoct alchemical pills to earn money. Otherwise, it would be difficult just to feed Hunyo, not to mention buy materials to cultivate. It couldn't be helped. He had just arrived in the imperial city yesterday, and there were 1,000 things waiting to be done. Everything had to start from scratch. Ling Han held Hunyo's small hand, asked a few people on the way, and found Tianyiji. As expected of the imperial city's Tianyiji. Merely a flight of over 1,000 steps was enough to make one gasp in amazement. It was 100 meters wide, and slanted all the way up. At a height of 300 meters, there stood a large hall that was incomparably magnificent. Ling Han and Hunyo followed the steps into Tianyiji. The moment they entered, they saw a maidservant who was a sales guide come up to greet them. Her appearance was very sweet, and she said, "Customer, hello. My name is Xiaoying. What alchemical pills do you need?" "I don't need alchemical pills, I only need some materials," Ling Han said with a smile. Customer, what kind of materials do you need? Xiaoying asked again. Ling Han listed out the materials he needed. Xiaoying was obviously well trained, as she memorized the names and quantities of the materials, and even listed out the price of each material. Customer, the total is 320,000 silver coins, Xiaoying said with a smile. Tianyi mainly relied on concocting pills to earn money. As for the materials, unless they were especially precious, such as the second star grass, the price would only be slightly higher than the cost. Thus, although this was a big deal, Tianyi did not earn much, so the commission she could get would naturally not be much. 320,000 Ling Han sighed. He only had a little over 100,000 on him, which was far from enough. But he also wanted to concoct the second star pill as soon as possible, so he said, "Please go and inform Fu Yuansheng that Ling Han is looking for him." Fu Yuansheng. Lord Pavilion Master. Xiaoying was startled for a moment, and then came to a sudden realization. She was so shocked that she could not even speak coherently. How high and mighty was the Lord Pavilion Master? Aside from the Rain Emperor, there was no one else in the whole of Rain Country who had a higher status than the Lord Pavilion Master. Even the clan heads of the 8 great clans could only sit on equal footing with the Lord Pavilion Master. A young man asking to see the Lord Pavilion Master naturally put her in a difficult position. There was no reason for her to go and inform him. "It's fine. You only have to tell him that I am Ling Han, and I believe Fu Yuansheng will reward you," Ling Han said with a smile. That was natural. He, the Alchemy Emperor, had personally come, so Fu Yuansheng would definitely be overjoyed. Xiaoying would not believe it. After all, Ling Han was only a young man of 17 or 18 years old, so how could he possibly be acquainted with the Lord Pavilion Master? Even if the clan heads of the 8 great clans came personally, whether they would meet or not would depend on the mood of the Lord Pavilion Master. However, in the training that she had received, not offending a guest was the #1 priority. Thus, she excused herself and said, "With my status, it is impossible for me to meet the Lord Pavilion Master. Please wait a moment, guest. Allow me to go and report to the person in charge." Ling Han naturally would not make things difficult for her, so he nodded and sat down at the side. Hunyo followed suit, climbing onto Ling Han's lap and also sitting down with a serious expression. After a while, Xiaoying could be seen walking over behind a man who looked to be in his 40s, looking a little panicked. "Brat, so you are the one who wants to see the Lord Pavilion Master?" The middle-aged man looked at Ling Han with disdain in his eyes. He had already heard from Xiaoying what had happened earlier. Before he came, Ling Han was definitely short of money, and that was why he had deliberately said that he was acquainted with the Lord Pavilion Master, wanting to use this kind of method to bargain. He was really too naive. Ling Han frowned, and said, "Be more polite with your words. If you have no money, then you have no money. What are you pretending to be capable for?" The middle-aged man humphed, then laughed loudly and said, "If you know the Lord Pavilion Master, I will eat this table." He pointed at a long table at the side. Ling Han revealed a smile, and said, "I had not thought that you would actually have such a hobby. If I did not satisfy you, I would be too unreasonable." Full of nonsense, the middle-aged man said coldly. Chapter 106. Manager Yuan. Xiaoying whispered to the middle-aged man. Tianyi had its own rules. One could not be rude to a guest. This was written in the first rule. The middle-aged man glanced at Xiaoying in displeasure, waved his hand, and said, "Men, chase this pauper out." Xiaoying did not dare to say anything, and only looked sympathetically at Ling Han and Hunyo. This middle-aged man's name was Yuan Gang, and he used to be a servant here. He did not think that his younger brother would suddenly advance to become a yellow-grade middle-level alchemist a few months ago, causing Yuan Gang's status to rise, and he became a small manager. Because he had not achieved his ambitions for a long time, now that he was in a high position, Yuan Gang became extremely arrogant, always thinking of ways to show off his superiority. Ling Han was very unlucky, and just happened to be in this guy's crosshairs. 2 burly men walked over and stood behind Ling Han. One of them said, "Guest, please follow us out." Ling Han sighed. Did he really have to use violence? Ling Han. Ling Han. At this moment, a sweet voice was heard from behind. Ling Han turned around and saw that the other party was actually Qi Zhantai. Why had this seventh princess of the royal house of the De Yuan king come all the way here? Moreover, it turned out that Zhu Hexian and Zhang Wei Shan had also come. Then it was only natural that this girl had come along. Yo, who would have thought that this pauper would have such a beautiful wife? Yuan Gang looked envious, then said to Ling Han, "Pauper, let me play with your wife for a night, and I'll give you a 20% discount, how about ha?" Ha! His face was instantly slapped, and he staggered, falling to the ground. The one who had slapped him was obviously Ling Han. "Bastard, you actually dared to hit me." Yuan Gang crawled up, his face filled with rage. "What, you can't hit me?" Zhang Wei Shan laughed coldly as he walked over. "What are you?" Yuan Gang didn't even think, and immediately pointed a finger in front of Zhang Wei Shan's face. What? He let out a cry of surprise, because there was a silver badge hanging on Zhang Wei Shan's chest. Perhaps some people might not recognize him, but it was definitely not him, the old man, who had worked in Tianyiji for more than 10 years. Black-grade low-level alchemist, my lord. He hurriedly bent his knees and bowed, his face full of fawning. He had relied on his younger brother to sit in the position of minor manager, but his younger brother was only a yellow-grade middle-level alchemist, while the other was a black-grade low-level alchemist. They were not on the same level at all. "Master, this guy is really bad," Qi Zhantai immediately said. Pufuan Gang immediately spluttered. This beauty was actually the disciple of a black-grade alchemist, and he had actually dared to flirt with her just now. Was he seeking his own death? He scowled miserably, and said, "Miss, look at this foul mouth of mine, I only know how to spout nonsense. I deserve a beating, I deserve a beating." He began to slap himself across the face. "Young friend Ling. Young friend Ling." Zhu Hexian also walked over, and together with Zhang Wei Shan, she clasped her hands in greeting towards Ling Han. "Ma, Grandmaster Zhu." Yuan Gang had only just noticed Zhu Hexian, and could not help but turn pale with fright. Unlike Zhang Wei Shan, who had always been stationed in the Yuan city, Zhu Hexian had always been in the imperial city, so how could he not recognize her? But two black-grade alchemists were actually greeting Ling Han together, so how could he not turn pale with fright? "You've come at just the right time. Help me call Fu Yuansheng over," Ling Han said with a smile. Zhu Hexian glanced at Yuan Gang, and said, "Young friend Ling, there is no need to trouble the pavilion master to deal with this kind of vile character, right?" He was a black-grade low-level alchemist, and dealing with a minor manager was only a matter of opening his mouth. "Grandmaster Zhu, I have eyes but failed to see." Yuan Gang hurriedly begged for mercy, but after saying this, he knew that the main culprit of this matter was Ling Han, so he hurriedly turned around and said, Young Master Ling, please be magnanimous and spare me this once." "Hee, you've forgotten, we still have a bet between us." Ling Han said with a smile, "Grandmaster Zhu, help me inform Fu Yuansheng and ask him to come over." "Young Master Ling." Zhu Hexian took a step forward, and said in a small voice, "You know Grandmaster Fu?" "I do, help me call him over, I have something to discuss with him." Ling Han nodded. "Then I'll immediately call him over for young Master Ling," Zhu Hexian said hurriedly, and turned to leave. After a while, Zhu Hexian and Fu Yuansheng were seen walking over quickly, one after the other. Of course, it was Fu Yuansheng who was walking in front. "Ha, young Master Han has arrived, please forgive me for not coming out to greet you," Fu Yuansheng said hurriedly. Yuan Gang's face turned even paler. So not only was Zhu Hexian extremely respectful to Ling Han, even Fu Yuansheng was very respectful to Ling Han. Where did this brat come from? He was too awesome, wasn't he? Ling Han smiled at Fu Yuansheng, then turned to Yuan Gang and said, "I win this bet, right?" "Of course young Master Ling wins." Yuan Gang changed his tune, his face full of flattery. Ling Han nodded, and said, "All right, you can eat now." Ah! Yuan Gang was instantly tongue-tied. "What, you still want me to add some seasonings to cook it? Do you want to braise it or steam it?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Young Master Ling really knows how to joke," Yuan Gang said awkwardly. "I joke with my friends, but you're not my friend," Ling Han said calmly. "What's going on here?" Fu Yuanxing interrupted, his tone already filled with strong displeasure. He and Wu Songlin had both received guidance from Ling Han the day before, giving them hope of breaking through to Earth-grade alchemists. To them, Ling Han could even be considered half a master. Now that Ling Han was obviously expressing his displeasure, he was naturally very unhappy. It was not appropriate for him to ask Ling Han, nor would he ask Yuan Gang, so he turned his gaze to Xiaoying. Yuan Gang instantly signaled Xiaoying with his eyes, hoping that she would be merciful in her words and say a few good words for him. But Xiaoying acted as if she had not seen him, and recounted everything that had happened just now. Fu Yuansheng was furious, and pointed at Yuan Gang's nose as he said, "How dare you? You can even speak for me. Since you said it yourself, then eat." Yuan Gang's face twitched violently. This time, it was a pavilion master of Rain Country's Tianyiji who had spoken, and even the current Rain Emperor had to give him face. Come, he had to eat today, even if he didn't want to. But how could he eat in front of a table? He braced himself, tore off a table leg and began chewing on it. Kacha, he was in the 9th layer of body refining tier, so his teeth and strength were not weak. Chewing the table leg to pieces was nothing difficult. When the other employees arrived, they all snickered. Yuan Gang was a scoundrel, and there were many who were not used to his style. It was just that they did not dare to openly oppose him. Now that it was his turn to suffer, they were naturally happy to watch the show. Ling Han, however, was not interested in Yuan Gang eating the entire table. He said to Fu Yuansheng, "It's better to dismiss this kind of person. This little girl is not bad, let her take over the vacant position. I will listen to young Master Han's arrangements." Fu Yuansheng was very humble. Xiaoying instantly looked overjoyed, and her gaze towards Ling Han was filled with gratitude. Chapter 107. Ling Han only needed to think for a moment to guess the crux of the matter. Li Hao was able to enter Huyang Academy, and would definitely have a bright future. The Zhu clan was worried that Li Hao would have a change of heart after experiencing the extravagant lifestyle of the imperial city, so they allowed Zhu Shuiyi to follow him. However, this couple seemed to have already broken through that layer of window paper, and their relationship was already ripe. Ling Han nodded internally, feeling happy for them. "Big brother Ling, I've been looking for you ever since I entered the academy, but I haven't been able to find you," Li Hao said a little guiltily. Ling Han laughed loudly, and teased, "You probably didn't spend too much time with Shuiyi. That's why you haven't been able to find me, right?" Li Hao's face instantly flushed red. In the past, he and Zhu Shuiyi only had a hazy feeling for each other, and neither of them had pointed it out. After arriving at the imperial city, they were a single man and a single woman, and they had also left their hometown, so naturally their feelings for each other had increased greatly, and they wanted nothing more than to stick together at all times. "Big brother Ling, you only know how to tease people," Zhu Shuiyi said coquettishly, helping Li Hao to dispel the awkwardness. Ling Han smiled. Li Hao was a little stiff, while Zhu Shuiyi was much more flexible. The two of them complemented each other perfectly. Popper." It was at this moment that they heard a soft voice of surprise from behind them, and a young man walked quickly towards them. It was actually the young master of the Kong clan. When he saw Ling Han, he could not help but smirk coldly, and said, "What a coincidence, to actually let me meet you here." He had been swindled out of 100 silver coins by Ling Han, and this bit of money was naturally nothing to him. More importantly, he was very displeased. However, later on, Su Koxian had barged in, so he did not have the time to settle the score with Ling Han. "Young Master Kong, who is this guy?" A gorgeously dressed woman came over and leaned into the arms of the young master of the Kong clan, her eyes flirtatious. "Oh, he's just a pauper." The young master of the Kong clan waved his hand, appearing extremely disdainful. "Who are you calling a pauper?" Li Hao was young and hot-blooded, so he could not help but retort. The young master of the Kong clan swept his gaze over Li Hao and Zhu Shuiyi, and instantly revealed an expression of disdain as he said, "You two must have just arrived in the imperial city recently?" "How do you know?" Li Hao blurted out. "Ha, you two look like country bumpkins, so you must have run out from some rural backwater." The expression of disdain on the young master of the Kong clan's face became even more pronounced. His eyes were fixed on Zhu Shuiyi as he said, "However, this country bumpkin girl is quite pretty. If she were to dress herself up properly, she might have a bit of fun." Bullshit. How could Li Hao allow his lover to be humiliated? He immediately raised his fist and punched towards the young master of the Kong clan. "Ah!" The bewitching woman immediately screamed. "Go to one side and wait." The young master of the Kong clan pushed the bewitching woman to one side, and with a wave of his hands, charged towards Li Hao. Peng, 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 the two of them began to fight. Li Hao was in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, while the young master of the Kong clan was in the 5th layer of element gathering tier. In theory, he should be stronger, but it was obvious that he had been pushed to this level by various resources. His foundation in martial arts was not stable at all, and his battle prowess was only limited to 4 stars. Thus, the two of them ended up in a tie. For a moment, the battle was intense, and neither of them had the upper hand. "Ha ha ha, who would have thought that a country bumpkin would have some ability?" The young master of the Kong clan laughed and said, "Country bumpkin, how about lending your woman to me to play with for a few days? Don't think that you're losing out. Under my guidance, your woman will be able to learn a lot of techniques, and let a country bumpkin like you have a taste of something new." Hearing him insult his woman once again, Li Hao's eyes turned red. In a fit of rage, he drew his saber and slashed towards the young master of the Kong clan. "You brat, you dare to use a weapon against me?" The young master of the Kong clan humphed, and similarly drew his sword, beginning to clash with Li Hao. Li Hao roared in rage, and finally unleashed his saber chi. Like a furious dragon, it danced towards the young master of the Kong clan. The young master of the Kong clan had forcibly advanced to the 5th layer of element gathering tier, so how could he possibly be able to withstand the saber chi? Instantly, a panicked expression appeared on his face. In just 2 or 3 moves, a few wounds had already appeared on his body from the saber chi, causing him to cry out in pain. "Stop! Stop!" he exclaimed in shock, and hurriedly stopped the battle. He was not a man with a strong will. "Apologize." Li Hao sheathed his saber, and shouted at the young master of the Kong clan. The young master of the Kong clan's face was livid. Asking him to apologize to a country bumpkin, if others found out about this, where would his face be? But this country bumpkin was obviously a rash brat, and if he resisted forcefully, it was very possible that he would suffer a calamity. He was just about to temporarily lower his head when his eyes swept over the surroundings. Instantly, a joyful expression appeared on his face, and he said, "Big Brother Tan, save me." A tall and slender young man was walking slowly towards him. His appearance was handsome, and every movement he made exuded a strong sense of confidence. His name was Tan Wei Qi, and he was a member of the younger generation of a mid-level clan in the Imperial City. In the Imperial City, there were only 8 great clans, and they all needed to have a powerful warrior of spiritual pedestal tier to keep watch. There were many more mid-level clans, because they only needed a powerful warrior of spiritual ocean tier to keep watch. At least, there were even more small clans, and only a warrior of gushing spring tier was enough. For example, though the young master of the Kong clan was respectfully addressed as young master, in truth, he was only from a small clan. However, the Kong clan had been in business for generations, and though they had not produced many powerful warriors, their clan was well off, and they were even wealthier than many mid-level clans. Thus, the young master of the Kong clan was acquainted with a considerable number of young masters from mid-level clans. This was also his capital. At first, Tan Wei-chi did not recognize the young master of the Kong clan, because the latter was currently in a very sorry state. He only managed to recognize him after taking a closer look. He could not help but be surprised, and said, "Kong Wenhui." "Big brother Tan, it's me." Kong Wenhui said with a long face. "Why are you in such a sorry state?" Tan Wei-chi could not help but laugh, because he had discovered that Kong Wenhui's opponent was only in the 4th layer of element gathering tier. Kong Wenhui glared fiercely at Li Hao, and said, "It's this country bumpkin. Just because he has formed a flash of saber chi, he actually dares to act so arrogantly in the imperial city." "Oh." Tan Wei-chi swept his gaze over Li Hao's body, and could not help but reveal a look of disdain. He could naturally tell with one glance that this was an outsider. That country bumpkin aura was practically overwhelming. As a member of a great clan of the imperial city, whether it was Kong Wenhui or Tan Wei-chi, they both had a natural sense of pride, and could not tolerate people who came from other places. Country bumpkin, kneel down and kowtow in apology. Tan Wei-chi did not ask how the two of them had gotten into a conflict, and immediately spoke in a menacing tone to Li Hao. Of course he would not have any misgivings. He was only a country bumpkin, so what kind of background could he have in the imperial city? Li Hao did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. The pressure that this person gave him was far greater than that of Kong Wenhui. At the very least, his cultivation level was in the late stage of element gathering tier. His saber chi could barely increase his battle prowess by 1 battle star, but it would definitely not be able to match an opponent in the 7th layer of element gathering tier. Unless Tan Wei-chi was also a fake like Kong Wenhui, who only had an empty cultivation level. A mere martial artist in the 4th layer of element gathering tier, I would be able to suppress him with a single finger. Tan Wei-chi humphed coldly, and said proudly, "I am in the 9th layer of element gathering tier." Li Hao's expression changed greatly. Even if his opponent was also a fake, 9th layer of element gathering tier would still have battle prowess of 7 battle stars, and still be able to completely suppress him. "Brother Hao, forget it," Zhu Shui said as she moved closer. His opponent was too strong, and with Ling Han's ability, although he did not have to fear martial artists in the 9th layer of element gathering tier, this was the imperial city after all, and who knew what kind of background each and every one of them had. Chapter 108. Fu Yuansheng's expression changed again and again, and finally turned into a long sigh. He said, "Though this person is a bit arrogant, he has considerable talent in alchemy. I originally wanted to gift him an opportunity, but who would have thought, sigh." He raised his clasped hands at Ling Han, and said, "Young Master Han, please don't take it to heart." Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "It's fine." This time, he did not want to pursue the matter further because of Fu Yuansheng, but if that He Lin dared to be arrogant again, he would definitely beat all of his teeth out. "Then let's begin." Fu Yuansheng had already retrieved the medicinal ingredients that Ling Han needed, and Ling Han had also retrieved the 2nd star grass. Everyone here was a black-grade alchemist, so how could they not recognize the 2nd star grass? A few of them instantly looked furious. They were actually asked to observe a junior concoct a refreshing pill. This was practically an insult to them. However, they did not have a black-grade high-level alchemist as their father, so even if they were displeased with Fu Yuansheng, they did not dare to say it out loud. However, the expressions on their faces were naturally difficult. In their eyes, Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan both had the urge to draw their weapons and chase them out. They actually dared to doubt young Master Han, and Zhang Weishan even felt a bit ashamed, because he had also doubted Ling Han previously. Ling Han did not care what others thought. With his status as the Alchemy Emperor, did he need the respect of other alchemists? He picked up the alchemy furnace and began to throw the medicinal ingredients into it. Does this brat actually know alchemy? How could he put in so many medicinal ingredients at once? That's right, the first step of alchemy is purification, and different medicinal ingredients require different temperatures for purification. Putting them together would only cause them to be destroyed. Forget it, just treat it as a waste of time. A few alchemists could not help but whisper amongst themselves. It was not that they did not believe Fu Yuansheng, but that Ling Han was really too young and too reckless. Not to mention them, even Fu Yuansheng, Zhu Xian, and Zhang Weishan were extremely shocked, because purifying the medicinal ingredients was the first step of concocting pills, and it was also an extremely important step. Could it be that Ling Han was going to mess it up the moment he started? It was a pity that Li Si-chan wasn't here. She had seen the entire process of Ling Han's alchemy. Purification was a piece of cake for her. After putting in the 7 medicinal ingredients, Ling Han's hands shook, and flames surged out. His figure began to circle around the alchemy furnace, and he struck palm after palm onto the alchemy furnace. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz, 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 buzz. Immediately, hot air rushed out of the furnace, and the fragrance of the medicine floated out. What? All the alchemists present widened their eyes in disbelief. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Master, what's wrong? Qi Zhantai asked in confusion. She had just entered the world of alchemy, and had only learned some theoretical knowledge. She did not know what was so shocking about this. Heavens, 7 medicinal ingredients can actually be purified at the same time? Am I dreaming? Before Zhang Weishan could reply, someone exclaimed in shock. These 7 medicinal ingredients require different temperatures to be purified. Originally, it was impossible to concoct them all at the same time, but this brat used a miraculous technique. It was as if he had split the pill furnace into 7 parts, and the temperature of each part was different. This allowed the 7 medicinal ingredients to be purified at the same time. Impressive. These people slowly came to their senses, and their faces were filled with undisguised admiration. However, this doesn't seem to have much meaning. After a while, an alchemist said hesitantly. After all, he could not do it, so his evaluation was not very convincing. Indeed. Even Fu Yuansheng nodded. Purifying 7 medicinal ingredients at the same time, although this ability is shocking, purifying the medicinal ingredients separately will only waste a little more time. He gave his evaluation. This was what it meant to be flashy but not practical. Because purifying 7 medicinal ingredients at the same time, one mistake would mean wasting 7 portions of medicinal ingredients. That's not right. Fu Yuansheng suddenly shook his head, his eyes widening. Why is this medicinal fragrance so thick? Reminded by him, the others also came to a sudden realization, and revealed expressions of shock. As black-grade alchemists, they had purified medicinal ingredients countless times, and were very familiar with the medicinal ingredients that were commonly used. But smelling this medicinal fragrance, it was obviously different from the ones they purified. The thicker the medicinal fragrance, the purer the extracted medicinal ingredient essence, and the higher the success rate when concocting the pill later. It was very simple. The fewer the impurities, the less interference. But the problem was, for black-grade alchemists like them, they had already reached the pinnacle of purification, and it was already impossible for them to have the slightest bit of improvement, so why was it that the essence of the medicinal ingredients that Ling Han had extracted was purer than theirs? Could it be that this is because he purified 7 medicinal ingredients at the same time? That's the only way to understand it. That's right, I heard from a senior that in ancient times, there was a great alchemist who purified many medicinal ingredients at the same time. Using the interaction between the ingredients, he could make the extracted medicinal ingredients even purer. Could it be that this is actually true? Hiss! This time, everyone could no longer remain calm. Purifying medicinal ingredients faster or slower was not a big deal, and no one cared about that little bit of time. But to be able to increase the purity of medicinal ingredients, that was shocking, and had an incomparably huge value. They all secretly sighed in pity, because they had previously thought that there was no point in doing this, and they had missed out on many of Ling Han's techniques. Thankfully, Ling Han still had many medicinal ingredients with him, so he would obviously continue. The 9 of them stared with wide eyes, not daring to miss any of Ling Han's movements. Qi Zhantai, on the other hand, became bored, but there were too many important people here, so she did not even dare to breathe too loudly. Ling Han was completely focused, and after purifying all the medicinal ingredients one by one, he began to concoct the second star pill. The technique he used was called the four-form seal, and was extremely effective in controlling fire. In his last life, this control technique was also quite impressive, and was widely known in the world of alchemy. Because he had been an alchemist in his last life, Ling Han could not bear to see alchemy wither away. Thus, he did not mind passing on some appropriate knowledge of alchemy to raise the level of alchemy in this life. As he concocted the pill, he explained the key points of the four forms seal. Including Fu Yuansheng, every alchemist was like a beginner, listening attentively, their faces filled with awe. If outsiders were here, they would definitely go crazy. It could be said that the most awesome alchemists of Rain Country were all here, yet they were all seriously observing a young man concocting alchemical pills. There was no seniority in learning, and those who were capable were the teachers. When Ling Han finished concocting the second star pill, the 9 alchemists were all immersed in the four forms seal, unable to extricate themselves. All of them sat cross-legged on the ground, sometimes looking pensive, sometimes stretching out their hands to clap. They were all trying their best to digest the explanation that Ling Han had just given them. Let's go eat some meat. Ling Han smiled faintly, and picked up Hunyo. There was a satisfied expression on his face. This time, he had concocted 7 second star pills, which would allow his divine sense to grow considerably. Hunyo instantly became happy. Eating was her favorite thing to do. I'll go too, Qi Zhantai quickly said. She was really too bored. Chapter 109. Ling Han carried Hunyo and exited the room with Qi Zhantai. However, Fu Yuansheng was a powerful warrior of spiritual pedestal tier after all. When the 3 of them exited the room, he immediately realized and hurriedly leapt out the door, saying, "Young Master Han, you're leaving. And, the mission is complete, so of course I'm leaving." Ling Han shook the 7 second star pills that had already been stored in the pill bottle, looking very satisfied. "Allow me to see young Master Han off," Fu Yuansheng said in a sincere tone. He had already been completely convinced by Ling Han's alchemy skills. Ling Han smiled and nodded. If he wanted to see him off, then let him. They went downstairs, and just as they reached the staircase, a servant came up to them and said, "Pavilion Master, the 3rd Imperial Prince requests an audience." "Oh." Fu Yuansheng paused, then said, "I was just about to go down, so you don't have to worry about me." "Yes." The servant quickly nodded. Only then did he arrive at Ling Han and Qi Zhantai. He could not help but be speechless, because it was actually Fu Yuansheng who was leading the way, which made him extremely shocked. Fu Yuansheng, one of the few people with the highest status in Rain Country, the 3 of them arrived at the ground floor, and saw a young man and woman waiting there. Both of them stood straight, without any hint of impatience on their faces. The man and woman were about 25 or 26 years old. The man was tall and had thick hair. His eyes were bright and full of penetrating power. It was as if he could see through anyone's innermost secrets with just a glance. The woman's figure was voluptuous and alluring, enough to make one drool. Her beautiful face was like a flower, her skin like white jade, and her hair was crimson red like fire, giving her a different kind of allure. This man was naturally the 3rd Imperial Prince, Qi Fengyun, but who was this woman? Ling Han was a little surprised, because this woman was also in Gushing Spring tier. In a small place like Rain Country, a martial artist in Gushing Spring tier below 30 years old was indeed quite shocking, and could definitely be considered a genius. "Pavilion Master." The 3rd Imperial Prince clasped his hands in greeting. Putting aside the fact that he was only an Imperial Prince now, even if he inherited the throne in future, he still had to be polite to Fu Yuansheng. "Zhantai greets 3rd Imperial brother." Qi Zhantai also bowed, and paid her respects to the 3rd Imperial Prince. "All right, wait here for a moment. I'll send this esteemed guest off." Fu Yuansheng nodded at the 3rd Prince. A distinguished guest. The third imperial prince's gaze involuntarily turned towards Ling Han, because there were only 3 people behind Fu Yuansheng. Qi Zhantai was from the royal family of the De Yuan king, so naturally she was not worthy of such treatment from Fu Yuansheng, and Hunyou was too young. What was the background of this young man that Fu Yuansheng could treat as an honored guest and personally see him off? Strange, he clearly had all the intelligence of the entire imperial city, so how could such an awesome character suddenly appear out of nowhere? Pavilion Master, please go ahead, he hurriedly said. Fu Yuansheng sent Ling Han to the door and earnestly invited Ling Han to visit frequently. Only after that did he turn around and leave. He seemed to be in a hurry, because he was also in a hurry to study the 4 images seal. Ling Han and Qi Zhantai walked side by side, while Hunyou waved her little hands excitedly and said, "Meet, meet, meet. Brother." The third imperial prince caught up to them. Ling Han stopped in his tracks, walked towards him, and asked, "What's the matter? Didn't this imperial prince have some business with Fu Yuansheng? Why had he suddenly appeared?" The answer was very simple. A character that even Fu Yuansheng had to respectfully send off had suddenly appeared in the imperial city, so as the third imperial prince, he naturally had to get to know him at first notice. One had to know that the current reign emperor had a total of 17 sons, and there were at least 5 who were qualified to compete for the throne. The third imperial prince would naturally make friends with those with talent, so that he could accumulate enough strength to fight for the throne in the future. "I am Qi Fengyun, dare I ask for brother's name?" The third imperial prince appeared to be very polite. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, Ling Han. "Brother Ling, I still have important matters to attend to, so it is not convenient for me to discuss them in detail now. Please accept this item, Brother Ling. I believe that in this imperial city, most people will give Brother Ling face on this item." The third imperial prince handed over an item. It was a violet-shaped badge. "Thank you." Ling Han did not stand on ceremony, and accepted the badge. "Brother Ling, after I have dealt with some trivial matters, I will definitely look for Brother Ling for a chat," the third imperial prince said with clasped hands, and hurriedly left with the beautiful woman. Ling Han smiled as he weighed the badge in his hand, and put it away in his pocket. "Ling Han, this is a token of the third imperial prince. It is said that if you hold this item, you don't even have to pay to eat or stay in the imperial city. All the expenses will be covered by the third imperial prince," Qi Zhantai said enviously. Ling Han was slightly startled, and then suddenly laughed loudly. Qi Zhantai felt that this was strange, and naturally asked for more details. "I think that this third imperial prince will definitely regret it," Ling Han said. "Why?" "Because there is a real glutton here." Ling Han rubbed Hunyou's head. Qi Zhantai still did not understand. She was just a little girl, so even if she ate from day to night, how much could she possibly eat? "There are really good people in this world," Ling Han said ruefully. The 3 of them went to a restaurant to eat. After witnessing Hunyou's terrifying appetite, Qi Zhantai finally began to worry for that brother of hers. Qi Fengyun might really be eaten until he went broke by Hunyou. Huyang University, Feng Luo's residence. "Bastard, bastard, bastard." Wei Hila paced back and forth in his room like a madman, his eyes bloodshot, and he looked extremely manic. He stopped, and said to Feng Luo, do you believe that Headmaster Wu actually expelled me from the alchemy department?" The corner of Feng Luo's mouth twitched a few times. This was not the first time that Wei Hila had complained to him. He counted in his heart, and it should have been 37 or 38 times already. Previously, he would still play along and comfort Wei Hila a little, but now he had completely lost the mood to do so. Having lost the importance of Wusong Lin, a mere yellow-grade low-level alchemist naturally would not be of much importance to him. "It's all because of that bastard, that goddamn brat." Wei Hili's eyes were about to spit fire. He had once been extremely glorious, with the halo of an alchemy genius. Even the descendants of the nobles and the imperial family would be polite when they saw him, But now it was as if he had fallen straight from the sky, his future bleak. What alchemist would dare to take someone that Wusong Lin had chased away as a disciple? And alchemy was most particular about inheritance. How could one achieve anything by relying on one's own ability? In other words, he was completely done for. Feng Luo saw this, and his lips curled up in a cold smile. He said, "Young Master Wei, I have an idea that can ruthlessly punish that brat Ling Han." Quite a few of his teeth had been knocked out, and his words were now leaking air. He needed to listen carefully to understand what he was saying. "Oh, what idea?" Wei Yilu immediately turned around. He had practically lost everything, and had become extremely crazy. As long as he could take revenge on Ling Han, he was willing to do anything. "Here, it's this." Feng Luo took out a badge in the shape of a violet flower. "What is this?" Wei Yilu could not help but be startled. "This is the third imperial prince's keepsake." Feng Luo smiled very sinisterly. "This was given to my brother by the third imperial prince. Tell me, if I say that this badge was lost, but was found in Ling Han's residence, how would the academy deal with him? And what would the third imperial prince's reaction be?" Wei Yili's eyes lit up, and he understood. Planting slander was more refreshing. Chapter 110. Ha ha ha, stealing is a shameless and evil act, not to mention that it involves the third prince. Wei Yilu could not help but laugh loudly. At that time, even if the academy did not want to pursue the matter, now that it involved the royal family, even Wusong Lin's face would not be of any use. The royal family was not a small matter, and Ling Han dared to steal something from the third prince. That was definitely a dead end. However, there has to be a reason, right? Otherwise, why would the thief steal this thing? Wei Yidong very quickly stopped laughing, and asked Feng Luo. Feng Luo snickered, and said, "This is the third prince's keepsake, and is only gifted to a very few people. Holding such a keepsake means that one is a close friend of the third prince. Not only is it a symbol of identity and status, but all the expenses in the various restaurants and inns of the imperial city can be recorded, and the third prince will be responsible for paying." "Yeah." Wei Yilu revealed an envious expression. Although he was a genius alchemist, he did not receive the third prince's favor and was gifted with such a keepsake. Now, a profligate young master actually had one in his hands. How could he not be envious? Feng Luo smiled proudly. This was specially gifted to him by Feng Yan, fearing that he would cause trouble in the imperial city. With the keepsake of the third prince, everyone would have to give him face. He patted Wei Yili's shoulder and said, "Young Master Wei, I'll leave the matter of framing him to you." Wei Yilu revealed an awkward expression. He only knew alchemy, and was good at eating, drinking, and playing around, but he had never done something like framing someone before. Moreover, there were too many people who wanted to suck up to him in the past. He only had to say the word, and there would naturally be people who would do it for him. Why would he need to do it himself? "What, you're not willing?" Feng Luo laughed coldly, and pretended to put away the keepsake. "Then forget it. I originally only wanted to help you vent your anger, but since you're not willing, I won't force you. Wait." Wei Yilu hurriedly called out. Gritting his teeth, he said, "I'll do it." His heart was filled with hatred. The reason why he had offended Ling Han was because he wanted to help Feng Luo, but now this guy actually said that he wanted to help him vent his anger. He was really turning his back on him. But after being abandoned by Wusong Lin, he was no longer the young Master Wei of the past. He was only a yellow-grade low-level alchemist, so did he have the right to oppose Feng Luo? Behind him stood a martial art genius, who faintly showed signs of approaching the level of the third imperial prince, Qin Yi, and other peerless geniuses. His future was limitless, and how could a down-and-out alchemist like him compare? If he were to reject Feng Luo now, that would mean that he would be cutting off his only possible future. If he followed Wusong Lin, he might be able to leave Rain Country in the future, and thus escape from Wusong Lin's shadow. He took the violet badge and silently walked to Feng Luo's side. He stood with his hands by his side and lowered his position. Ha ha ha. Feng Luo laughed loudly, his face filled with pride. Even his elder brother would not have thought that he would actually be able to subdue a slightly talented alchemist. Who would still dare to say that he was a profligate young master? Try subduing a yellow-grade alchemist. Wei Hilo lowered his head, his eyes filled with remorse. But now that things had come to this, how could he still turn back? After a free meal, Qi Zhantai naturally returned to Tianyiji, while Ling Han brought Hunyo around for a while to buy some materials to set up a formation. Only then did he return to the academy. He was not in a hurry to take the second star pill. Instead, he began to set up a formation around the courtyard. This was an early warning formation. Anyone who entered the courtyard would be alerted by the formation, and it would send out a warning that only he could receive. Even if he was not in the courtyard, there would still be some clues left behind, telling him that an outsider had barged into this courtyard. There was nothing he could do about it. The materials he had on hand were limited, so he could only set up a simple formation like this. Otherwise, if it had been in his last life, even a powerful warrior of heaven tier might not have dared to barge into the formation he set up. I'll just make do with it. I don't have any enemies now anyways, he mumbled. If these words were heard by Lu Yutong, Qi Yongyi, and the others, they would definitely jump out to object. He actually dared to say that he didn't have any enemies. Wu Bo was one, Feng Yan was another, He Junchen was another, and so were Nangong Ji. These people were not to be trifled with, especially Wu Bo and Feng Yan. One was a young master of the Wu clan, while the other was a genius of martial art who had the potential to become a king tier. If these two were not enemies, then who was? Unfortunately, they did not know that although Ling Han's cultivation level was weak now, he had the pride of a powerful warrior of heaven tier in his bones. How could he possibly care about these small fries? Moreover, he had been like this in his last life. His heart was incomparably proud, and he would definitely not lower his head to anyone. This formation was very simple, so it did not take Ling Han long to finish setting it up. Then, he began to take the second star pill to strengthen his spirit. As far as Ling Han knew, there was no cultivation technique in this world that could strengthen the spirit. Only when one's cultivation level increased would the spirit correspondingly strengthen by a level. This was passive, just like when he was in heaven tier in his last life, the power of his spirit only needed to wave slightly, and he could even directly erase the spirit of a powerful warrior of spiritual infant tier. However, he always suspected that since the spirit could be recovered through cultivation techniques and strengthened through alchemical pills and godly medicines, then it should also be possible to cultivate through cultivation techniques. It was just that there was no such cultivation technique in circulation now. This was not impossible. Because if he had not come from 10,000 years ago, how would he know that so many pill recipes had been lost? Obviously, there were many good things that had been lost in history. It was so in this life, so could it be that his last life would not be an exception? A true example was that in the last period of his last life, he had once entered many historical sites and obtained some ancient pill recipes, which similarly belonged to the category of lost. Thus, many years ago, there might have been cultivation techniques that could temper the spirit. As he thought, he absorbed the medicinal effects of the second star pill. His whole body instantly felt extremely comfortable, because the spirit was responsible for all the sensations in the body. Now that his spirit had become stronger, he naturally felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. One after another, he very soon swallowed all 7 second star pills. The power of my spirit has almost doubled. Ling Han opened his eyes, and his gaze became even deeper, like a bottomless pit, causing others to involuntarily sink into it. He smiled. This is the benefit of having a strong spirit. I can use my spirit to oppress my opponent, and this can be used as a special move. If others are not on guard, it is very possible that they will be instantly killed by me. The strength of my spirit now should be equivalent to that of gushing spring tier. His smile involuntarily widened. This means that I can cultivate at the speed of gushing spring tier's spiritual chi absorption. Added with my immortal grade spirit base, I'm afraid that even I would be shocked by the speed of my cultivation. Hurry up and reach Gushing Spring Tier. Only when I reach Gushing Spring Tier can I cultivate black grade martial arts techniques. This is the true beginning of martial art. Now, I have all my skills but am unable to use them. This kind of feeling is really terrible. There's a mouse that ran in. Chapter 111. Madam, please speak. If I can do it, I naturally will not refuse. If I cannot, then I would not dare to accept this gift, Ling Han said very calmly. The young girl looked surprised. After hearing about the effects of this pair of gloves, he could still be so calm. Was this guy really a young man? No matter how he looked like an old man who had been through many hardships. Lady Yen smiled and said, since I have asked for young Master Ling's help, then young Master Ling will definitely be able to do it. I would like to ask for young Master Ling's help. I would like to ask the expert behind young Master Ling to concoct a permanent pill for me. Permanent pill? Ling Han looked surprised. Madam has a friend who has fallen into a state of suspended animation. How did you know? Mrs. Yen abruptly stood up, her face full of excitement. The permanent pill was a black grade high-level alchemical pill, but it was infinitely close to earth grade. The number of black grade high-level alchemists that could concoct it could be counted on one's fingers. At that time, Lady Yen had also begged Fu Yuansheng and Wu Songlin to concoct it, but the two of them did not have the slightest confidence that they could succeed, so they had rejected Lady Yan's request. Now, Ling Han had guessed the effects of the permanent pill the moment he heard its name, so how could she not believe that there was a grandmaster alchemist behind Ling Han, who was even more awesome than Fu Yuansheng and Wu Songlin? An earth-grade alchemist. Everything that happened in the Cherishing Flower Pavilion naturally could not escape her eyes and ears. Thus, when she found out that Ling Han had a very close relationship with the two big bosses of alchemy, she guessed that there should be an even stronger alchemist behind Ling Han's back. Otherwise, there was no way that Wu Songlin and Wu Songlin would lower themselves to befriend him. This made her decide to befriend Ling Han, and see if she could ask that grandmaster behind Ling Han to help her concoct the permanent pill. I guessed, Ling Han said calmly. He naturally would not tell her that he had been the alchemy emperor in his last life, so there was no pill recipe that he had not heard of or seen before. The calmer he appeared, the higher his position in Lady Yan's heart would be. This was called having confidence. Young Master Ling, does that grandmaster behind you have the confidence to concoct this permanent pill? Lady Yen asked, trembling slightly. Yes, Ling Han nodded, and showed a faint smile. In truth, if it had been a few days ago, he really would not have the confidence to succeed, because this was an alchemical pill that was infinitely close to earth grade, and he was only capable of concocting yellow grade high-level alchemical pills. But after fusing with the strange fire, he had enough confidence to concoct all alchemical pills below earth grade. Who asked him to be the former alchemy emperor? Really? Happiness had come too suddenly, and Lady Yen actually had a feeling that it was surreal. Ling Han nodded. Thank you, young master. Lady Yen bowed, her eyes brimming with tears. Ling Han said, give me the ingredients, and come to Huyang Academy 3 days later to retrieve them. 3 days, a problem that had troubled her for 10 years, only 3 days was needed to solve it. Lady Yen revealed a pleasantly surprised and dazed expression. After being stunned for a moment, she finally said, Shuang, help me retrieve the ingredients. Yes, Lady Yen. The young girl at the side hurriedly answered. Her name was Yun Shuang, and she was an orphan adopted by Lady Yen. Since she was young, she had been pampered and raised by Lady Yen as if she were her own daughter. Very soon, Yun Shuang returned with a wooden box. This box was much larger than the one she had just received. If it could be used directly within one's body, then wouldn't that be even more amazing? He was calm and composed, like an eminent monk who had attained the Tao. Even though there was a beautiful woman sitting in front of him, he acted as if he did not see her. Yun Shuang's beautiful face could not help but twitch, appearing to be extremely indignant. This was too despicable, she was a beauty. Pang, a sudden change occurred. The carriage actually split open from the middle. That was a flash of saber light, and as if it could sever the heavens and destroy the earth, it split the carriage into two halves. Who would be so daring to actually make a move in the imperial city? Ling Han and Yun Shuang both leaped out of the tumbling carriage, and stood firmly on the ground. The coachman, on the other hand, was not injured. He drove the horse and the half-destroyed carriage, galloping far away before finally stopping. Ling Han and Yun Shuang raised their heads and looked towards a nearby place. On a wall, there was a young man standing with a saber in hand, exuding an endless domineering aura. Feng Yan, Ling Han, I've said it before. Today, I will give you a beating. He cracked a smile, but his expression was cold, and the pressure he exuded was extremely frightening. This was a person who liked to break the rules. In his last life, he had also been such a person. He was not bound by any of the rules, and that was because he had enough ability to become one of the 7 great warriors of heaven tier in the world. Was that not awesome enough? Feng Yan was definitely not an idiot. Previously, he had confronted the 3rd Imperial Prince head-on, and now he was openly cutting off the carriage. This was not just any kind of arrogance. Naturally, he had his own reasons for doing so. Feng Yan, you've gone too far. Are you not even giving face to madam? Yun Shuang said angrily. Was he openly challenging the Cherishing Flower Pavilion to a duel? Chapter 112. And who are you? Ling Han looked at the green-robed young man, his gaze becoming sharp. How dare you speak to me like this? Hung, you are indeed a traitor, the green-robed young man said coldly. His gaze was sharp as a sword as he stared at Ling Han, a terrifying aura circulating around his body. He was an elite of gushing spring tier, and now that he used his aura, it was a suppression on the spiritual level. Ling Han acted as if nothing had happened. He had just taken 7-second star pills yesterday, greatly increasing the strength of his divine sense. To suppress him with his aura, one would have to be in spiritual ocean tier. The green-robed young man could not help but be surprised. He had already circulated his aura, so why did Ling Han not have the slightest reaction? This is senior brother and Xue Ming, the captain of the 7th small team of the discipline committee, a black-robed young man said, introducing the green-robed young man. And one more thing, he is Big Brother's loyal subordinate, Feng Luo added secretly. Since there was such a good opportunity, he would of course make full use of the resources around him to nail Ling Han down completely. The evidence of his crime had already been arranged, and there was even his brother's subordinate acting as the executioner. How could Ling Han escape this calamity? I am very busy, and have no time to waste with you. Bring me to your residence, I want to search it, and Xue Ming said. Ling Han stood with his hands clasped behind his back, and said, on what basis? Are you refusing to cooperate with the discipline committee? And Xue Ming said darkly. He had received Feng Luo's request, so he naturally treated Ling Han as an enemy, so there was no need for him to be polite. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, are you saying that you discipline committee can search anyone's residence just because you suspect something? I seem to have lost a bar of soap, and I suspect it was stolen by Wusong Lin. Please go search his place. Pooh! Everyone choked. Wusong Lin was the headmaster of the alchemy department, a black-grade high-level alchemist. In terms of status, he was even more awesome than the headmaster of the martial arts department, Lian Guangzhu. To search his place, wasn't that seeking death? Ling Han really dared to speak, even daring to make a joke about Wusong Lin. Did he not want his life anymore? And Xue Ming's face twitched violently as he felt that Ling Han was practically a madman. One had to know that if the words that Ling Han had ridiculed Wusong Lin just now were to be spread out, he would definitely be beaten to death. How could an elite of spiritual pedestal tier be casually used as a joke? What's more, Wusong Lin had the halo of a black-grade high-level alchemist. You're courting death, he said coldly. Since Ling Han was such a madman, he didn't have any more misgivings. You dare insult Sir Wu? Arrest him. Oh? Who dares to make a move? Ling Han looked at them disdainfully. He broke into a smile, and said, You'd better think carefully. Don't be used by others. Otherwise, if you make a move against me, I won't show any mercy. Everyone could not help but hesitate. Actually, aside from Shui Ming, the others did not have much of a relationship with Feng Yan. As for Ling Han's fearless appearance, he seemed to have a powerful background. When the time comes, don't let the King of Hell fight and bring disaster to them. For a moment, no one dared to step forward. Insolence! Not only do you speak without thinking, you even dare to threaten a member of the discipline committee. You're practically lawless. And Shui Ming said darkly. He pointed a finger at Ling Han, Zhong Lin, arrest him. Yes, yes. A young man walked out reluctantly. Ling Han casually kicked out and landed a kick on Zhong Lin's butt. With a pang, Zhong Lin instantly fell heavily onto the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The whole place was silent. In Huyang University, Zhong Lin definitely could not be considered an elite, but in the level of poly tier, he was enough to rank in the top 100. But now, he was actually defeated by a 5th-layer poly in one move. Who could believe this? Good brat, no wonder you're so arrogant. So you have some ability. And Shui Ming's eyes shone coldly as he stepped out. He decided to personally make a move. Ling Han revealed a slightly cautious expression. Zhong Lin was in gushing spring tier, and if he materialized his battle prowess to poly tier, it would at least be 20 stars. Moreover, this did not include the increase in black-grade martial arts techniques. Of course, and Shui Ming might not possess a black-grade martial arts technique. Stand down. Mo Gao stood in front of Ling Han, glaring angrily. He could forget about what had happened before, but as Ling Han's teacher, he definitely could not watch as his student was bullied and humiliated by others. Chapter 113. And Shui Ming hesitated slightly. No matter how useless Mo Gao was, he was still a teacher of the academy. How could he be so easily humiliated? To deal with Ling Han, he had a good reason to do so. Moreover, the thief had already been planted, so Ling Han would not be able to escape no matter what. Then, even if he had used some crude methods in the process, so what? Who would cry out for the injustice of a person who had lost all standing and reputation? Mo Gao was different. Teacher, let me. Ling Han lightly pushed Mo Gao away. And Shui Ming was very strong, but he could barely handle the 2nd layer of gushing spring tier. Ling Han. Mo Gao was shocked. He stepped forward because he expected that Shui Ming wouldn't dare to do anything to him, but Ling Han didn't have any trump card to protect himself. No matter how freakish he was, he couldn't fight the 2nd layer of gushing spring tier, right? Don't worry, teacher. Ling Han said with a smile, and strode out. Ha ha ha, I have to admit, you've got guts. And Shui Ming saw that he'd solved a difficult problem, and couldn't help but be in a good mood. Ling Han shook his head, and said, You're just a lackey, what right do you have to bark? I'll break all your teeth. Impudence. And Shui Ming glared angrily, and was about to attack. Making such a ruckus in the academy, what a scandal. A dissatisfied voice was heard, full of authority. Everyone turned their heads and saw that it was a tall man dressed in embroidered robes. He exuded a powerful aura that would cause anyone who laid eyes on him to feel admiration. The 3rd Imperial Prince, Qi Fengyun. Behind him, there was a red-haired beauty who followed his every step. She had a hot figure and fiery red lips. However, this was the 3rd Imperial Prince's woman, so who would dare to take a second glance at her full and perky bottom? Greetings, 3rd Imperial Prince. Everyone half-knelt, paying their respects to this man who could possibly inherit the throne in the future. Ling Han, however, stood straight like a spear. In this world, there was no one who had the right to make him kneel. This was the pride of being a powerful warrior of heaven tier, and even now that he'd changed his body and his cultivation level had fallen, it couldn't be changed. He would only control his temper, but definitely not his pride. Get up. The third prince raised his hand slightly and asked, "What's going on?" "Your Highness," and Xue Ming secretly applauded in his heart. The violet badge had originally been given to Ling Han by the third prince. Now that the person involved had arrived, it could further aggravate Ling Han's crime. The point was that once the violet emblem was found, Ling Han would not be able to deny it even if he wanted to, because the third prince would not recognize it. And Xue Ming immediately recounted the entire story. Of course, according to him, he had received a report from Feng Luo, and had then used the clues to suspect that Ling Han was the culprit. Hence, he had come over to search and arrest him. The third prince had a strange expression on his face after hearing this. Others might not know, but how could he not know? He'd just given a violet emblem to Ling Han yesterday, so why would he need to steal it? With his intelligence, he naturally realized at the first moment that someone was trying to frame Ling Han, and it was very likely that it was Feng Luo. Feng Luo stood at the side, and seeing the third prince's strange expression, he thought that he was angry. He hurriedly added fuel to the fire, saying, "Your Highness, it's all my fault. After requesting your Highness's keepsake from my elder brother, I didn't take good care of it, and it was stolen by a thief. Your Highness, please punish me." He lowered his head and clasped his hands in greeting to the third prince, but the corners of his mouth curled up in a cold smile. And Xue Ming quickly realized this, and hurriedly rushed in front of Ling Han, glaring angrily at him. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, "What are you glaring at? There must be something wrong with your eyes. Also, you're just a lowly commoner, why do you dare to walk in front of the third prince? Are you trying to rebel?" "I rubbed." "What a serious crime." And Xue Ming felt slightly dizzy. He had only wanted to stop Ling Han from being so awe-inspiring, so why was he suddenly being accused of such a crime? He quietly glanced at the third prince, and saw that the latter's expression was indeed somewhat gloomy, which made him even more dizzy. He hurriedly said, "Weren't you also walking in front of us just now?" "Nonsense, I'm bringing you to my place of residence. If I don't walk in front, then should I walk behind? Has your head been kicked by a donkey?" Ling Han mercilessly mocked. This. Cold sweat beaded on in Xue Ming's forehead. "Surnamed, what kind of intentions do you have? Not respecting the third imperial prince, this is treason," Ling Han said unhurriedly, but this only added insult to injury. "Don't slander me." And Xue Ming had not thought that his unintentional action would actually be dug out by Ling Han into such a big problem, and he hurriedly defended himself loudly. He was really afraid that Ling Han would be able to use this against him. "Alright, since Ling Han told you to search, then hurry up and search," the third prince said, his face full of impatience. "Yes." And Xue Ming let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that the third prince had no intention of delving too deeply into his disrespectful action. Chapter 114. Search. And Xue Ming turned around and pointed, his face once again full of confidence. "Wait." Ling Han said. "What? Feeling guilty and scared?" And Xue Ming laughed coldly. Ling Han pushed open the door and said, "Hunyo." Xiao, a small figure flew over and leapt into Ling Han's arms. It was Hunyo. The little girl was extremely impatient, so she had stayed in the room to play by herself. For Hunyo, who had an extremely strong sense of territory, the entrance of these outsiders was tantamount to a declaration of war against her. The little girl did not care whether she could defeat them or not. She would definitely wave her little claws and open her mouth to pounce on them. "Alright, you guys search," Ling Han said with a smile. And Xue Ming could not help but look at Hunyo suspiciously. He was worried that Hunyo had hidden the dirty thing on her body, but on second thought, Ling Han had no chance to communicate with her at all, and did not even know what the dirty thing was, so it should not be the case. Search, he said to the people of the discipline committee. Yes, they all answered, and like a tide, they surged into the courtyard. Ling Han stood outside with Hun Yo in his arms, while the third imperial prince, the red-haired beauty, Mo Gao, Feng Luo, and Wei Hilo were also waiting outside. They were not members of the discipline committee, so naturally they could not casually enter a student's residence. Sounds of rummaging could be heard from inside. Ling Han simply brought out a chair from the courtyard and sat down with Hun Yo in his arms. Seeing this, the red-haired beauty also brought out a chair from the courtyard and invited the third imperial prince to sit down. Feng Luo was naturally unwilling to just stand there. You guys are all sitting, and I'm standing, then wouldn't I become your servant? Wait. He had just taken a step when he was stopped by Ling Han's shout, "Dogs are not allowed in my courtyard." What? Feng Luo instantly jumped up, "You dare call me a dog? You've already been stepped on by me so many times. Why are you still so confused?" Ling Han shook his head and sighed. Being entangled with a nobody like you will only lower my taste. There's no meaning in stepping on you. If it was your brother, I would feel a sense of achievement. This was not him boasting. Back then, he was a heaven tier elite, and those who could be trampled by him were at least deity transformation tier elites. Ling Han, Feng Luo said word by word, his eyes almost spitting fire. Pointing at Ling Han, he said, "You can be stubborn now, but you will definitely die later." Ling Han's lips curled into a smile as he said, "I'm tired of your face too. You should get lost from Huyang University." Found it. Right at this moment, a cry of surprise rang out from within the courtyard. Afterwards, Shui Ming and a dozen or so others walked out from the courtyard. At the head of the group, Shui Ming held a badge in his hand, a cold smile on his face. "Ling Han, what else do you have to say now?" Shui Ming thrust the badge forward. "This is not mine," Ling Han said casually after sweeping a glance over it. "Of course it's not yours." Feng Luo continued, "This is a gift that the third imperial prince gave to my brother. A few days ago, it suddenly went missing, and as expected, it was stolen by you." Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "I say, your intelligence is a bit low. You have to know that I just arrived at the imperial city the day before yesterday. Before you want to frame me, you should at least make sure of the facts first." Feng Luo was startled. He had never thought that Ling Han would coincidentally bump into him on the first night he arrived at the imperial city. He hurriedly explained, "I remembered wrongly. It should have happened yesterday or the day before yesterday." Ling Han clicked his tongue in praise, and said, "There is indeed something wrong with your brain. You can't even remember when you lost it. And this person from the Law Enforcement Association, your eyes are truly sharp, to be able to lock onto me in such a short period of time. Humph, now that you've been caught, everything you've said is just sophistry." And Shui Ming knew that the more he said, the more flaws there would be in his story. He only needed to firmly hold on to the fact that Ling Han was a thief, and that would be enough. "I have a question." Ling Han smiled, and said, "I would like to ask, why did I steal this thing?" Huh. Feng Luo obviously knew that Ling Han would ask such a question, and he immediately said, "This is a keepsake of the third imperial prince. It represents that you are a friend of the third imperial prince. Everyone in the imperial city desires to possess it." These words were rather well spoken, not only confirming Ling Han's crime, but also flattering the third imperial prince. "Ling Han, what else do you have to say now?" And Shui Ming laughed coldly. Ling Han leisurely said, "I don't have anything else to say, but I do have something that I would like your Imperial Highness to take a look at." "Oh, what is it?" the third imperial prince asked very cooperatively. "Here, it's here." Ling Han took out his violet badge. What? Everyone's gaze was fixed on that tiny badge. Even though most of them had only heard of it before, but why did the two badges seem to be exactly the same? You actually stole another badge." Feng Luo stammered. In all honesty, he definitely only had one badge in his possession. Some people had already reacted, and they looked at Feng Luo as if he was an idiot. From the beginning to the end, Ling Han had been too calm. Previously, they had thought that he was arrogant to the point of not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, but now that they thought about it, he was actually very confident. "Oh, this is the present that I gave to Brother Ling yesterday." The third imperial prince also revealed a smile. Someone as intelligent as him naturally knew how to cooperate with Ling Han, and there was no need for him to inform him beforehand. Wipe, wipe, wipe. Everyone present wanted to curse and swear, "The two of you were playing us like monkeys." Ling Han weighed the token in his hand, and said, "I really did not think that your Imperial Highness would be so generous. I heard that you don't even need to pay to enter a restaurant to eat with this thing." The third imperial prince could not help but twitch slightly. Could it be that Ling Han was only interested in this token of his? His face as the third imperial prince was only worth this much? If the other party was a normal person, he would naturally have long since flown into a rage. But later on, he went to see Fu Yuansheng, and from the latter's words, he found out that this great alchemist held Ling Han in high esteem. Who was Fu Yuansheng? Amongst the most powerful people in Rain Country, he was definitely one of the most powerful people. Moreover, he was ranked at the very top. Putting aside the fact that he was only an imperial prince now, even if he inherited the throne in future, he would not dare to do anything to Yuansheng. If he dared to be careless in dealing with someone that even Fu Yuansheng had to respect, wouldn't he be forcing Fu Yuansheng to become his enemy? He was not the only son of the current Rain Emperor who had great talent and strategy. The competition for the throne was extremely fierce. It was fine if he could not obtain Fu Yuansheng's support, but if he forced Fu Yuansheng to the side of his competitor, then that would really be a foolish move. I can be considered half a master here, so of course I have to take care of your meals," he said with a loud laugh, easily dispelling the awkwardness. Ling Han broke into a smile, and said, "I hope your Imperial Highness will not regret this in future." How could that be possible? The third imperial prince shook his head resolutely. He definitely would not have imagined how difficult his expression would be when he went to settle the bill next month. Chapter 115. The soul was a person's root. If one's divine sense was destroyed, then only an empty shell would remain. Just now, Ling Han had taken a detour around the gates of hell. Curiosity really killed the cat. Ling Han shook his head. If it were not for the fact that there was also a monster hidden inside his body, he would really have suffered a terrible fate just now. Without a doubt, the godly medicine had activated some kind of ability in Hunyo, or perhaps caused her to awaken, and this could possibly only happen 4 or 5 years later. Yet Ling Han felt a strong sense of strangeness, because that spirit base inside Hunyo's body, that peerless beauty, gave him a feeling that she was even stronger than heaven-tier elites. In his last life, whether it was the Sword Emperor or the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, these two strongest existences in heaven-tier, they had not been able to give him this kind of pressure. He reckoned that even if he recovered his cultivation level of heaven-tier, he would still be completely powerless against this kind of existence, just like how his body had been easily shattered by the Black Tower in his last life. This was definitely not a power from the mortal realm. The Black Tower was already mysterious enough, treating his body as its home, but Hunyo was even more extreme. A seemingly supreme existence had actually transformed into her spirit base. She was obviously only a little girl in body refining tier. But when he thought about it again, weren't the two of them a bit similar? Could that peerless beauty also be formed from some kind of supreme treasure tool? If one had reached this kind of level, transforming into an incomparably real human form did not seem to be strange at all. What the hell? Ling Han slapped his forehead with his hand. This life was really strange. Not long ago, an ultimate warrior of Shattering Void tier had arrived, and he was suspected to have died after being surrounded and attacked by countless ultimate warriors of Heaven tier. A large number of level 9 spirit tools flowed out with the flow, and there was even a rogue godly medicine that formed a strange fire. And now, within Hunyo's body, there was another existence that was above Heaven tier, and within his body, there was also a supreme Black Tower. It was as if all of a sudden, shattering void tear had become worthless. Hunyo obviously did not have much patience, and stopped after cultivating for a while. Seeing that Ling Han was looking at her, she could not help but break into a smile, and with a paw, pounced into Ling Han's arms. She rubbed her little belly, and said, "Hungry." True, this little girl had not eaten for quite a few days. "You cultivate obediently, and I'll go and cook for you. If you don't cultivate properly, then you won't have any meat to eat," Ling Han stated his conditions. "Oh." Hunyo pouted, obviously very unhappy. She did not like cultivating, as it was too dry and boring. Ling Han ran to the kitchen to cook. Since the glutton had returned, the mountainous pile of food here would probably be completely consumed in a few days' time, because he could guess that after this round of transformation, Hunyo's appetite would definitely increase considerably. He was already mentally prepared, but Hunyo's explosively increased appetite still gave him a fright. Her appetite had more than doubled. "Thankfully, I have money now, and can take advantage of the third imperial prince. Otherwise, I really would not be able to feed this little girl." He shook his head. Halfway through their meal, the Lu sisters also woke up. When they entered the kitchen, they were immediately given a fright, and their beautiful faces could not help but twitch. "Is this really a little girl?" When it came to the two girls, Hunyo immediately put on a protective expression, and glared fiercely at the two girls. A low growl escaped from her throat, and she looked as if she would bite off their necks if they dared to stretch out their hands. "Damn pervert, you are indeed a pervert." Lu Ruer's beautiful face paled. A young man actually kept a little loli in his house. This was obviously a big problem. "I'm not a pervert, I'm just a bad guy." Ling Han changed Gu Fenghua's famous words. "Little girl, come here quickly, we will protect you." Lu Ruer waved at Hunyo, but this kind of action was seen as a provocation by Hunyo, causing the little girl to leap onto the table. She placed all four limbs on the table, and was ready to attack. "Forget it, don't lower yourself to their level." Ling Han pulled Hunyo down from the table, and conveniently stuffed a piece of meat into the little girl's mouth, causing the little girl to immediately start eating happily. "Who are you calling ignorant?" Lu Ruer said, unconvinced. Ling Han only laughed mischievously, and said, "The two of you have been recuperating at my place for quite a few days, right? Shouldn't you pay some rent or something?" Don't you want money?" Lu Ruer said disdainfully, "How much do you want?" "Then it's just a so-so. This amount for each of you." Ling Han raised a finger. 1 million. Lu Ruer gave another humph, "Deal. However, since you have accepted our money, we are your employers, and we have the right to ask you to do things for us." "Che, 1 million. Ling Han shook his head. "You have to know that if I hand you over, the two of you would be dead. So, what we are talking about now is the value of the two of you selling yourselves. Do you think 1 million is appropriate?" Sell yourself. You're the one selling yourself." Lu Ruer's beautiful face instantly paled, but she immediately said, "Then how much do you want?" 10 million, 20 million. When she said 10 million, even she herself was shocked. It was not that they could not earn that much money, but they had just started their career, after all, so where would they find so much savings? "You're wrong. For people as beautiful as you are, no matter what, you would be worth at least 100 million. Don't be modest with me. Otherwise, I will send the two of you to the Cherishing Flower Pavilion and ask how popular the business of two beauties in Gushing Spring Tier would be." Ling Han appeared to be very passionate. Lu Ruer blinked. She felt that it was not a good idea to agree, but it was also not a good idea to refuse. If she agreed, where would she find so much money? If she refused, wouldn't that be the same as devaluing herself? Her adaptability was not good enough, and she instantly stuttered, appearing to be at a loss as to what to do. "Brother Ling, don't bully little sister anymore," Lu Feng'er smiled faintly. "All right, damn scoundrel, you're deliberately playing with me." Lu Ruer finally came to her senses, her face filled with anger. "Silly girl. Ling Han shook his head. If you want to stay here, then you have to abide by my rules. Those who do things like entering without knocking are the real scoundrels. Lu Ru'er knew that he was talking about how she had peeped on him bathing last night, and could not help but feel very embarrassed. She could not help but pout. She was not a scoundrel. Who would have thought that there would be someone bathing in the kitchen in the middle of the night? Were you washing pig's trotters or cooking pig's trotters? When she thought of this, she could not help but reveal a strange smile. This was the so-called spiritual victory technique. In the future, I'll give you 2-3 meals a day, Ling Han said. He told Hunyao not to get into conflict with the two girls, and then told her to focus on her cultivation. At first, he had wanted to go to Mo Gao's place, but when he thought that the latter had already started cultivating in seclusion to break through to gushing spring tier, he could only give up. Ling Han moved to a place further away and sat down cross-legged to cultivate. He did not want to stay too close to the little girl and fight for spiritual qi, which would instead make it impossible for him to fully display the advantage of having an immortal-grade spirit base. This cultivation session lasted for almost half a day, and Ling Han revealed a satisfied smile. Now, he would be able to advance a small tier every 5 or 6 days, so it would not be long before he would be able to give Feng Yan a very big surprise. When it was noon, Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan both came over, bringing with them a piece of big news. It was more refreshing to read on his phone. Chapter 116. There were a few female members of the discipline committee, and before they left, they all looked at Ling Han lovingly. To them, this was definitely a wealthy son-in-law. Even the third imperial prince could order around him, and there were only a few like him in the whole of Rain country. If they could get their hands on such a Prince Charming, then their life would be worth it. Brother Ling, I really did not think that you would have such achievements in alchemy. Even Grandmaster Fu is full of admiration for you, the third imperial prince said to Ling Han with a smile after everyone had left. He had caught up with Ling Han yesterday and gave him a keepsake, but that was because Fu Yuanxing valued Ling Han very much. In truth, he knew nothing about Ling Han. But after that, he went to visit Fu Yuanxing, and asked him about Ling Han in a roundabout way. Though Fu Yuanxing did not explain in detail, just a few words were enough to make the third imperial prince's heart tremble. Thus, after only one night, he immediately came to visit Ling Han. For someone like him who aspired to become an emperor, Ling Han was really too valuable a resource. In truth, he did not know that Wu Songlin had also been won over by Ling Han. Otherwise, he would definitely be even more shocked, and value Ling Han even more. Ling Han only smiled faintly. A mere prince of a small country was naturally not worth his attention. But since he was not very powerful now, there was no harm in borrowing the power of this prince. At most, he would help him ascend the throne in the future, and return this favor. A person like the third imperial prince was naturally good at talking, and adjusted the atmosphere so that the conversation between the two of them remained in a relaxed and pleasant atmosphere. At the end, he bid farewell and left. This friendship naturally could not be forged in a day. At noon, Wu Songlin ran over, and gave him 10 banknotes worth 1,000,000 coins. Thank you, young Master Han. Wu Songlin's face was filled with gratitude. Those who did not know would definitely be confused, wondering if Wu Songlin's brain had gone haywire. What kind of person would give money and still say thanks? But to Wu Songlin, the value of the Dayuan soul-nourishing technique could not be measured with money. Even if the price was 100 million or 1 billion, he would still find a way to gather the money. Ling Han unceremoniously put away the banknotes. He was indeed in need of money, and this Dayuan spirit-nourishing technique was indeed worth the price. Moreover, money could only be used at lower cultivation levels. When one reached the flower blossom tier, who would still use worldly objects like gold and silver? However, money was still quite useful now, so Ling Han showed a satisfied smile. Seeing this, Wu Songlin naturally took the opportunity to ask Ling Han for guidance. Ling Han casually gave him a few pointers. Wu Songlin was able to become a black-grade high-level alchemist, so his aptitude was not bad. There were many principles and crucial points that he could understand with just a few pointers. Otherwise, Ling Han really would not have such patience. As soon as Wu Songlin left, Lu Yutong came over with Ling Zixian. Ling Han was too lazy to go out to eat, so he used the ingredients in the house to prepare lunch. Because there was a super glutton, the amount they cooked was also extremely shocking. Those who didn't know would think that it was a happy occasion. "I'm sorry," Lu Yutong suddenly said. "Why do you suddenly say that?" Ling Han did not take it to heart and asked casually. "That Qinyan Xiang has some background, so I wasn't able to take him down." "Who?" Ling Han turned to ask. Lu Yutong could not help but slap her forehead, and said, "You're really a bit forgetful. Could it be that you've forgotten that there was an old guy who wanted to snatch Xian Xian and Hunyo 2 days ago?" Oh. Ling Han remembered. He did not take this kind of minor character to heart at all. At that time, since Lu Yutong said that he would leave it to her to handle, he naturally forgot about this old lecher. He did not think that even with the power of the Lu family, they would not be able to deal with him. "Xiang has a daughter who is Sun Ziyan's concubine," Lu Yutong explained. Sun Ziyan. Ling Han could not help but laugh. How could there be someone with such a name? Was he not afraid that others would call him grandson? The Sun clan is one of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, and Sun Ziyan is one of the most outstanding members of the younger generation of the Sun clan. He should be 25 years old this year, and has just broken through to Gushing Spring tier. He is very valued by the Sun clan, Lu Yutong said. So, the Lu family does not want to become enemies with the Sun clan, and did not pursue the matter further. Ling Han continued. Lu Yutong sighed, and said, "That is indeed the case. Sun Ziyan dotes on Qinyan Xiang's daughter very much, and right after the clan made a move against the Qin clan, Qinyan Xiang went to look for the Sun clan, and with Sun Ziyan personally coming out to protect Qinyan Xiang." Ling Han gave an "oh." No wonder Qinyan Xiang dared to collude with the Earth and Water faction to kidnap someone. So not only was he extremely daring in lust, he also had the support of the Sun clan, so even if something happened, there would be someone to cover for him. "Since the Lu family cannot touch him, then I'll do it myself," Ling Han said. In any case, in his eyes, Qinyan Xiang was no different from a flea, and could be easily trampled to death with a casual step. Lu Yutong looked very ashamed. She had obviously taken charge of this matter, but in the end, she had not managed to accomplish it. "Ha ha ha, don't be so dejected. You're obviously a great beauty. Come, give me a smile," Ling Han said with a laugh. "Hee hee." Lu Yutong did not laugh, but Hunyo did. Her mouth was stuffed full of meat, so when she laughed, she could not even see her teeth. With a pu-chi sound, seeing her like this, both Lu Yutong and Ling Zixian began to laugh loudly. You two are currently eating." A pleasant and gentle voice was heard, and an incredibly beautiful figure walked in. With every step she took, lotuses bloomed, and was shockingly beautiful. Li Si-chan. Lu Yutong was very surprised. She had never thought that she would meet her here. Lu Yutong. Li Si-chan was also a little surprised. The noble daughter of the Lu family would actually sit and eat together with Ling Han. If this was spread out, no one would believe it. Who did not know that Lu Yutong was usually an icy beauty? It was really unimaginable that she would be so intimate with a man. "Oh, you two know each other? That's good, then I won't have to introduce you," Ling Han said with a smile. Lu Yutong looked at Li Si-chan, and Li Si-chan also looked at Lu Yutong. The eyes of these two stunning beauties flickered with the flames of war. Although they were known as the twin beauties, in reality, they did not have much of a relationship. It was just that they were both too beautiful, and one had outstanding talent in martial art, while the other had a shocking performance in the field of alchemy. That was why they were known as the twin beauties. They were both intelligent people. Being able to sense the other's presence in Ling Han's residence, what did this mean? They did not know why, but they all felt a little sour in their hearts. "Have you eaten yet?" Ling Han asked Li Si-chan. "No." Li Si-chan had clearly eaten, but the words immediately changed when they were about to come out of her mouth. "Then let's eat together," Ling Han said with a smile. Li Si-chan sat down without hesitation, took a pair of chopsticks and a bowl, and slowly ate. "Oh, that's right. You were looking for me for something?" Ling Han asked. "Oh, I specifically came to inform you. A few days ago, there was a small earthquake, and an underground river appeared. There was actually an ancient spiritual artifact floating out along the river." Li Si-chan told him a big piece of news. Chapter 117. What? Lu Yutong immediately jumped up. "There's actually such a thing. A spirit tool required at least a spiritual ocean tier warrior to nourish it with his own power. Over time, the warrior's martial art would be engraved into the weapon in a special form, possessing power similar to the warrior's own. It was easy to form a spirit tool, but a martial artist's lifespan was limited. To nourish a spirit tool would require at least 20 to 30 years. Moreover, spirit tools also had high requirements for materials, so there wouldn't be many spirit tools. Of course, this was in a small place like Rain Country. In Ling Han's previous life, which warrior didn't have a few spirit tools? Some who specialized in the path of tool even had dozens, or even hundreds of spirit tools. When they were used together against an enemy, it was indeed a bit fierce. But in Rain Country, the biggest limitation was the materials for spirit tools. How could there be so many precious materials? Now, there was an underground river that produced a spirit tool. What kind of concept was that? Ling Han, on the other hand, did not have much interest. His goal was to return to the heaven tier. With great power, what spirit tool could he not obtain? Not to mention that the black tower resting in his dantian was definitely a spirit tool, and its grade was indescribably high. Because he was in heaven tier, no matter how weak he was still countless times stronger than deity transformation tier, but the black tower only shook and killed him. Now, he only needed to focus on breaking through to gushing spring tier and he could enter the black tower. Maybe he could know the secrets of the black tower, and even control it. Since that was the case, why would he waste his effort and rush about for other spirit tools? Why are you still sitting there? Li Si-chan looked at Ling Han strangely. One had to know that when she had first found out about this news, she had also lost her composure just like Lu Yutong, but Ling Han, it was as if he had not heard anything at all. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Isn't it just some spirit tools? What's so special about it?" "Some spirit tools?" Li Si-chan hissed. This guy really talked big. Spirit tools. If small martial artists like them could get a spirit tool, even if they wouldn't be reborn, their battle prowess would definitely increase by 3 or even 5 stars. Isn't that awesome enough? She tilted her head and stared at Ling Han. She had a feeling that this guy was pretending, but Ling Han remained calm, which made her disappointed. "Why didn't I get the news?" Lu Yutong asked curiously. This was too inconceivable. She was the strongest member of the new generation of the Lu family. If even Li Si-chan knew about it, it was impossible for the family not to inform her. Li Si-chan deliberately sighed and glanced at her with a pitiful look. Lu Yutong was flustered by her sigh and glance. She couldn't help but doubt her own value. However, Ling Han smiled and said, "Yutong, you don't need to be sad. This girl will know because Wu Song Lin wants to do me a favor, so he asked her to come and inform me." The news of a spirit artifact suddenly floating out of an underground river will definitely be strictly sealed. Only the upper echelons are qualified to go there. He paused for a moment and continued, "At the end of the underground river, there might be an ancient site. Because time has changed, a spirit artifact will float out of the underground river. Right now, the upper echelons are thinking of developing this ancient site, but it's extremely dangerous inside. Naturally, they won't bring you juniors to take the risk." Li Si-chan was dumbfounded. After a while, she said, "Are you really a 17-year-old youth? What you said is exactly the same as what my master said." Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Actually, I've lived for more than 200 years." The two girls immediately rolled their eyes at his words. Who would believe him? Ling Han sighed. When he told the truth, people always took it as a joke. It hurt him very much. If that's the case, why did Dean Wu come to inform us? Lu Yutong very consciously put herself and Ling Han together. Li Si-chan suddenly felt a faint sense of displeasure in her heart. She emphasized, "Master wanted me to inform Ling Han alone." This time, Lu Yutong didn't get angry. Instead, she just smiled and seemed to have a deeper meaning. Li Si-chan's displeasure grew. She turned her head and said, "Master said that those spirit artifacts seem to have a mind of their own and can't be collected at all. After leaving the underground river, it'll be fine if no one alarmed them. Once they're alarmed, they'll immediately fly away." Ha! Ling Han suddenly stood up. For the first time, a serious expression appeared on his face. Spirit artifacts could be divided into two types. The first type was very ordinary, but strong practitioners had their own martial art intent engraved on them. It was like a brand. As long as it was activated, it would become a powerful weapon. But no matter what, it was just a weapon, an inanimate object. As time passed, the martial art intent contained in this kind of spirit artifact would slowly dissipate. In the end, it would degenerate into an ordinary artifact. This was very normal. Martial artists needed to absorb spiritual qi to replenish their power. Once a spirit artifact left the hands of a strong practitioner and was used by a weak practitioner, it wouldn't be able to make ends meet, and the power within would naturally be slowly consumed. However, there was another type of spirit artifact. Because the materials used were too special, it would even develop a mind of its own during the process of becoming a tool. This was called a tool spirit. A spirit artifact with a tool spirit would automatically absorb the spiritual qi between heaven and earth to replenish the consumed power. Like a martial artist cultivating, no matter how many years passed, its power wouldn't fade. To forge such a spirit artifact, the materials themselves were indescribably precious. Rain Country, perhaps it could produce such materials, but it didn't have the ability to forge it into a tool. Even spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual infant tier elites couldn't damage the slightest bit of this material with their full power, so how could it be forged into a tool? Moreover, to nurture a tool spirit, the requirement for a martial artist was even higher. It had to be at least in the deity transformation tier. Thinking of this, how could Ling Han not be shocked? An underground river floated out large amounts of 8th tier, even 9th tier spirit artifacts. Damn, in his last life, there were only 7 heaven tier elites in the whole world. Ling Han's interest was instantly piqued, and he asked, "Where is that underground river?" "Che, I thought you really transcended everything. Aren't you just tempted and pretending to be mature?" Li Si-chan muttered. "Less nonsense, where is that place?" Lu Yutong didn't have the slightest favorable impression of her, and immediately rebuked. "Apologies, Master told me to only tell Ling Han." Li Si-chan went tit for tat, not showing any weakness. "Ha, I'm Ling Han's servant. If you want to speak to my master, you have to go through me first," Lu Yutong said a bit proudly. "What?" Li Si-chan was shocked, and looked at Lu Yutong with an incredulous gaze. This was a noble daughter of the Lu family, and those who pursued her could line up several times around the imperial city, but she actually became Ling Han's servant. But thinking about it again, even Wu Songlin had to address Ling Han as young Master Han. The noble daughter of the Lu family didn't seem to be that valuable anymore. Moreover, from this girl's expression, you're clearly showing off. Infuriating. Chapter 118. Alright, we're all on the same side, stop arguing. Ling Han came out to smooth things over. He was now very interested in that underground river, so he naturally did not wish for the two girls to waste their time on some random matter. Who's on the same side as her? the two girls said at the same time, and when they realized that the other actually said the exact same thing as them, they said together, "Don't copy my words." Ha ha ha. Ling Zixian instantly laughed loudly, and Hunyou laughed along with her, though she did not know what was so funny about it, and was purely enjoying the show. "Finish eating, right? Once you're done, we'll leave." Ling Han stood up with a leap. Not. Hunyou hurriedly mumbled. The little girl's learning ability was very strong, and she was able to speak more and more words. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "Yutong, you stay here and take care of these two girls." Lu Yutong hurriedly shook her head, and said, "I want to help you." She was in gushing spring tear, so she could be of help to Ling Han. Ling Han was a bit troubled. This trip would definitely not be just one day, so who would take care of these two girls? Ling Zixian was fine, but Hunyou was practically a man-eating little tiger, so Ling Han would not feel at ease leaving it in anyone's hands. But the ancient site was very likely to be filled with dangers, so he definitely could not bring these two little girls along. Then leave it to Wu Songlin. Ling Han thought for a moment. Li Si-chan instantly rolled her eyes. Her master was a black-grade high-level alchemist, and also the headmaster of the alchemy department, yet he was actually reduced to taking care of children for someone else. Who knew if he would faint if he heard this? Yet Ling Han felt that this was a good idea, because Hunyou was not someone who would stay put. If she caused any trouble, with Wu Songlin's status, he would be able to easily deal with it. Thus, when Hunyou was full, he brought the two little girls and Li Si-chan with him to Wu Songlin's place. This time, Wu Songlin happened to be at home. When he saw Ling Han, he quickly came out to greet him like a disciple. When Ling Han said that he wanted the two little girls to stay here temporarily, the old man readily agreed. He also asked Ling Han for guidance on the Dayuan soul replenishing technique. After all, such a technique was unique in this world, so there were many things that the old man did not understand. Ling Han lectured attentively and also inquired about the situation of the underground river before leaving with Li Si-chan. After leaving Wu Songlin's courtyard, he didn't walk far before he saw a young man in front of him walking over. He looked to be about 24 or 25 years old. His looks were not bad, but his face was full of ruffian aura. He even opened the front of his shirt as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know that he was a hooligan. Li Si-chan's eyes were sharp, and her pretty face immediately revealed a displeased expression. She should have recognized this guy, but she also didn't like him. Si-chan. The man also saw Li Si-chan and couldn't help but show a happy expression. He immediately walked out quickly and acted like he was going to hold her hand, a lecherous expression on his face. Li Si-chan moved to the side, frowned, and said, "Wu Zhongyi, be more respectful. Also, I've told you many times, you have to call me Martial Uncle." "Damn woman." The man called Wu Zhongyi muttered, a cold smile rising on his face, and said, "Do you want to be ungrateful? Don't forget, if it weren't for my grandfather taking you as a disciple, you'd have long since had your pants taken off and been fucked to death." "You." Li Si-chan's pretty face instantly paled. The man's words were really too vulgar, causing her delicate body to tremble slightly and almost spit out blood. "Isn't that so?" Wu Zhongyi humphed. "It's not like you haven't heard of that brat from the He clan's character. Not only does he like to torture beautiful women, but he also specially chooses public places to do it. If it weren't for my grandfather protecting you, you'd have long since been played to the point where not even a scrap would be left. Now, you think that your wings have hardened, and you want to be ungrateful?" Ling Han listened on the side, and naturally quickly sorted out the context. This Wu Zhongyi was Wu Songlin's grandson, and he had slept with Li Si-chan, but Li Si-chan didn't like him. Sometimes being too beautiful wasn't a good thing. From this point, Lu Yutong was much luckier. As a noble daughter of the Lu clan, who would dare to covet her? "Master's kindness, I will naturally repay it," Li Si-chan said through gritted teeth. "All right, then repay it." Wu Zhongyi smiled lecherously. "My parents also think that we're very compatible." Why don't you marry into my family tomorrow? My parents will definitely be very happy. Hey, you clearly look like a pig, what are you thinking? Ling Han took a step forward and blocked in front of Li Si-chan. Your name isn't good either, no loyalty, sigh, it sounds like scum. What are you? Wu Zhongyi was stunned. Slap! Ling Han's hand rose and fell, giving him a slap. He slowly withdrew his hand and said leisurely, I hate it when people curse in front of me. Wu Zhongyi felt extremely wronged. Weren't you the one who called me a pig first? Oh, I wasn't scolding you just now, I was just stating a fact. How do you think you don't look like a pig? Ling Han explained. He was still very easy to talk to. Still calling me a pig? Wu Zhongyi immediately jumped up and pointed at Ling Han's nose, how dare you? Not only did you scold me, but you also hit me. Slap! Ling Han slapped him again, and Wu Zhongyi spun 4 times on the spot before falling on his butt. He waved his hand and said, I also hate it when people point their fingers at me. Don't you know that it's very uncultured and impolite? You hit someone and you're polite and cultured? Wu Zhongyi cursed in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. He crawled away for fun, then stood up and pointed at Li Si-chan, saying, you ungrateful bitch, hooking up with an outsider to bully me. Just you wait, one day you'll marry me, and then I'll. These words made Li Si-chan's pretty face turn even paler, and even Ling Han couldn't stand it anymore. He picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at Wu Zhongyi. Aya! Wu Zhongyi screamed and fell to the ground, no longer moving. Li Si-chan's pretty face changed, and she said, you didn't kill him, did you? Although she didn't like this person, Wu Zhongyi was Wu Songlin's only grandson. If he died, the Wu family's line would be broken. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. At most, I'll let him lie in bed for a dozen or so days, and he'll have some memory problems. For example, he won't remember anything that happened in the last 1 or 2 days, or even 1 or 2 months. Ling Han wasn't very sure. Li Si-chan rolled her eyes. He didn't hit hard enough, but Ling Han did it for her, which made her feel a little touched. Don't worry about him. There are people coming and going here, and it won't be long before someone finds him. Ling Han pulled Li Si-chan up and left. That Wu Zhongyi was really annoying, so he naturally didn't mind letting him lie for a while longer. Li Si-chan couldn't beat Ling Han's strength, and could only be pulled along by him. When you guys returned to their residence, Lu Yutong saw that the 2 of them were holding hands, and her pretty face couldn't help but have a murderous look. Chapter 119. Ling Han only nodded at Xiaoying, and then, accompanied by Yuan Shu, arrived at the 3rd floor of the palace hall. This was the place where high-level alchemists concocted alchemical pills and rested. How about this, we won't limit the number of people today. I will concoct alchemical pills, and you all can watch and learn. Everyone will just have to reluctantly accept a fee of 1 million silver coins, Ling Han said to Yuan Shu. Pooh, Yuan Shu's 4 disciples once again spluttered. You want to charge 1 million silver taels just to concoct pills? Are you trying to rob me? Even the corners of Lu Yutong's lips twitched. A fee of 1 million silver coins in one go? Even if there were only 10 people concocting alchemical pills in one go, they would be able to earn a net profit of 10 million silver coins. 10 concoctions would mean a fee of 100 million silver coins. 100 million. The Lu clan was a large clan, and their monthly income would definitely be more than 100 million silver coins. But in terms of pure profit, it was definitely not that much. In fact, it was far from that much. A single person could rival an entire clan. No wonder Ling Han was so confident that he would be able to ruin the finances of the Qin clan. It was really too easy for him to earn money. However, would Yuan Shu agree? Really? Yuan Shu's eyes widened, and an expression of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. It will only cost 1 million silver coins. Damn! Lu Yutong and his 4 disciples all felt like they were about to faint. Yuanchu actually thought that 1 million silver coins was too cheap. Of course. Ling Han would only need to concoct alchemical pills a few more times, and he would be able to advance in level. How could a few million silver coins compare to that? Moreover, as long as he advanced in level, he would be able to concoct even higher grade alchemical pills. And every time an alchemical pill advanced in level, the price would also skyrocket exponentially. It could be said that every high-level alchemist was wealthy enough to rival an entire nation. However, the majority of alchemists were not misers, and would use this huge sum of money to improve their own alchemy skills. But as long as one had reached black grade, which alchemists did not have a net worth of several tens of millions, 1 million was really nothing. Ling Han did not care about money at all. This was only a worldly item. When one's prowess had advanced into the flower blossom tier, money would not be able to buy the cultivation resources that one needed at all. One would have to barter for what they needed. Of course, money was still of some use now. Otherwise, Ling Han would not have asked for a viewing fee. Yuanchu immediately went to call for more people. Very soon, the various black-grade alchemists arrived one after another. However, there were pitifully few yellow-grade alchemists. There were only Li Si-chan, Qi Zhantai, and a few others. The last one was Fu Yuansheng. Old Fu, you've come at just the right time. Help me collect the money, Ling Han said without holding back. This time, Yuanchu's 4 disciples really fainted. That was Fu Yuansheng, one of the 2 big shots of alchemy in Rain Country, yet in Ling Han's mouth, he had become Old Fu. Yet Fu Yuansheng immediately came forward with a smile on his face. To be able to serve a Grandmaster Alchemist was an honor for him. Speaking of which alchemist here had not started out as an alchemy boy? They had all done a lot of work as assistants for others. Thus, not only did they not feel the slightest bit of disdain towards him, they were instead filled with envy. To be able to serve a Grandmaster Alchemist, it really made them feel envious. Everyone happily handed over the money. Only Li Si-chan and Qi Zhantai were exempted. Black-grade alchemists really did not lack money. Today, I will be concocting the foundation building pill. Everyone should know that this is a black-grade high-level alchemical pill, so I will also take the opportunity to be certified as a black-grade high-level alchemist, Ling Han said. Foundation building pill. When they heard Ling Han mention the 3 words, foundation building pill, everyone looked astonished. There were many different kinds of black-grade high-level alchemical pills, and the difficulty of concocting them naturally varied greatly. Normally, they were divided into 4 categories: easy, difficult, extremely difficult, and practically impossible. The so-called practically impossible was actually an alchemical pill close to earth grade. Being able to concoct such an alchemical pill meant that one would definitely be able to advance into earth grade. The foundation building pill was precisely the practically impossible to concoct. This kind of alchemical pill could help a martial artist of spiritual ocean tier build his foundation and make preparations for building his spiritual pedestal tier. It was one of the rarest types of alchemical pills for breaking through to the next level. The first was the difficulty of concocting it, and the second was the effectiveness of the completed pill, which allowed the foundation building pill to become an alchemical pill close to earth grade. To a martial artist, there were 3 types of alchemical pills that were the most valuable. The first was to increase one's cultivation level, the second was to help one comprehend martial arts, and the third was to break through to the next level. And if these 3 types of alchemical pills were to be ranked, then it would be exactly the opposite. Alchemical pills for breaking through to the next level were the most valuable, and also the rarest. Alchemical pills that could prolong one's life were not included, because only natural spirit medicines could have such an effect. Once they were concocted, it would instead have the opposite effect. Everyone here had heard of the foundation building pill, but in a small place like Rain Country, not a single person could concoct it, including the 2 big bosses of alchemy. And if this kind of alchemical pill could be sold in large quantities, one could imagine how many powerful warriors of spiritual pedestal tier would appear in Rain Country because of this. This could very possibly overturn the power structure of Rain Country. Just thinking about it caused these people's scalps to go numb. An alchemist that could change the power structure of a country sounded like a dream. I want these ingredients, Ling Han said to Fu Yuansheng. The foundation building pill was ranked close to earth grade because of its difficulty in concocting and its effects, but the ingredients required were not much different from normal black grade high-level alchemical pills, so the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion would definitely have them. Indeed, Fu Yuansheng immediately nodded. With a wave of his hand, he ordered someone to open up the storeroom and retrieve the ingredients that Ling Han needed. Calculate it, how much is it? Ling Han asked with a smile. How can we accept young Master Han's money? Fu Yuansheng hurriedly waved his hand. Yet Ling Han insisted, and said, you must accept it. Once he accepted the money, the foundation building pill that was concocted would belong to him. How much were the ingredients for this thing worth? 1 million or 2 million could be used to complete the pill, so don't think it was too expensive to bid for it. It was guaranteed that there would be a large number of people fighting over it. Fu Yuansheng could only smile sheepishly. He had wanted to retrieve a completed pill to study it carefully. One had to know that the success rate of concocting alchemical pills that were close to earth grade was shockingly low. If a cauldron was filled with 10 ingredients, then it would already be very good to have one completed pill, and 2 was practically nature-defying. Black-grade high-level ingredients were still very expensive. A single cauldron of ingredients was worth as much as 3 million, and if the cauldron exploded, that would mean that 3 million silver coins would be wasted for nothing. However, as long as he could refine one, not only would he be able to break even, he would also be able to make a huge profit. This was a high-grade alchemical pill, and a rare type of high-grade alchemical pill, so it was worth this price. Ling Han was completely empty-handed. He had come empty-handed, and when he sold the observation fee, he earned 18 million, and now he had only paid 3 million. And with his ability, what did alchemical pills that were close to earth grade count for? Even if he could only concoct 3 pills, just thinking about it, the value would still be terrifyingly shocking. Everyone, please be careful. I'm about to begin, Ling Han said. Because these people had all paid, and he had received a favor from others, he also gave them a reminder. Everyone's eyes widened. Not only would they be able to observe the alchemy skills of a grandmaster, they would also be able to witness the birth of a cauldron of alchemical pills that were close to earth grade. Just thinking about it made their scalps tingle. Ling Han's expression gradually became solemn. When it came to alchemy, he would never be careless. After taking a deep breath, he suddenly began to move. Instantly, his movements were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water, extremely smooth. It was very pleasing to the eye, as if it conformed to some kind of principle of heaven and earth. Reading on one's phone was even more refreshing. Chapter 120. Lu Bucheng swept a glance at Ling Han, a sliver of displeasure on his face. A youngster actually dared to question him, did he still have any respect for his niece? But for the sake of his niece, he did not immediately fly into a rage. Instead, with a dark expression, he said, there were indeed a few gains, but they were all spiritual treasures that were more seriously damaged. The spirit within them had already been extinguished, so they were intercepted. Can you let me have them? Ling Han asked. Lu Bucheng finally couldn't hold himself back any longer. These spiritual tools were extremely valuable. Even if they were badly damaged, they were still treasures among treasures. The inscriptions engraved on them had an extremely valuable research value, because those were the martial intent left behind by a powerful warrior in the past. Who knew, perhaps in the future, a few powerful warriors of the spiritual infant tier would appear in Rain Country, greatly increasing the level of martial arts in Rain Country. How could a youngster like you have such valuable things? Pay, even he did not have the right. Don't daydream, he reprimanded. He was not too strict, and this could be considered as a warning for the sake of Lu Yutong. 7th Uncle. Lu Yutong was a bit anxious, but when she saw that there was no displeasure on Ling Han's face, she was slightly relieved. She hurriedly said, what's so important? It's not bad, Lu Bucheng almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Was this really his talented and extraordinarily intelligent niece? Why did it seem like her brain had short-circuited and she said such low-level words? What did she mean by not bad? The emperor was not bad either, but could you see him whenever you wanted? This was a question of qualifications. I can't make the decision on this matter. Let's go see the lords first, he said. This was the truth. He was only in the 9th layer of gushing spring tier. In the clan, he could be considered a pillar of strength, but definitely not a core figure. What's more, there was more than just the Lu family here. Why didn't you say so earlier? You can't make the decision, so what are you so smug about? Ling Han shook his head. Damn! Lu Bucheng almost spat out another mouthful of blood. This youngster really held a grudge. He only reprimanded him a little, and he bore it in his heart. He immediately wanted to fly into a rage, but when he recalled that although Ling Han had come together with Lu Yutong, he was holding Wu Songlин's keepsake. If he made a move, it would be equivalent to making Wu Songlin lose face. To be honest, he absolutely did not have such qualifications. If his family found out about this, they would definitely make him beg for forgiveness and kneel in front of Wu Songlin to await punishment. He had to pay such a price just to vent his anger. Lu Bucheng wasn't that stupid. He would have to pay such a price just for a moment of anger. Of him. Ling Han revealed a faint smile. He naturally would not lower himself to the same level as Lu Bucheng. He was only teasing him. Who asked him to be so blind? Seventh brother Lu, why did you bring these youngsters here? When a middle-aged man saw them, a strange and puzzled expression appeared on his face. This was the most important place among important places. Was it a place that could be casually brought in? They have Master Wu Songlin's token and letter, and have full authority to represent Master Wu, Lu Bucheng said irritably. What? The middle-aged man was shocked. Wu Songlin's position in Rain Country was second only to the Rain Emperor, and was on equal footing with the clan heads of the 8 great clans. In any case, I'll bring them to see the lords first. Lu Bucheng saw the man's shocked expression, and a sense of joy rose up in his heart. He was also shocked just now, and now that there was someone to share it with, he felt an inexplicable sense of joy. He brought Ling Han and the others into the largest tent. This was the place where the great parties discussed matters, and there were 3 powerful figures present at the moment. What, they represent Master Wu? The 3 powerful figures were also dumbfounded. This place involved a high-level spirit tool, but Wu Songlin sent 3 youngsters here, and 2 of them were even in the poly tier. This was something that they could not accept. Yes, this is my master's token and letter, Li Sichan said. The 3 powerful figures read it together. This was indeed Wu Songlin's token, and the handwriting matched perfectly. Of course, even if there was a token and letter, because this was a serious matter, they would immediately send a letter back to the imperial city to confirm with Wu Songlin. Alright, you guys can stay here first, and you can participate in the harvesting of spirit tools, one of the powerful figures said. Harvesting of spirit tools, why did this sound so strange? Because there were limited tents here, Ling Han occupied one to himself, but Lu Yutong and Li Sichan would have to squeeze together. Because Ling Han now represented Wu Songlin, he had the right to know more information. There were a total of 10 parties here, and aside from the imperial family, there were the 8 great clans and Huyang University. Of course, only the 2 headmasters of Huyang University had the right to participate, and the others did not know that there was such a thing. As for Tianyi, they were refused entry, because this was not a party of Rain Country, but a large organization that spanned across several countries. If they knew, then it wouldn't be long before the surrounding countries would also send their elites to steal the spirit tools. The key was, where was the source of this underground river, and why were there so many spirit tools flowing out? Could it be an armory, or the ruins of an ancient great sect? If it was the latter, then aside from spirit tools, there could be cultivation techniques, alchemical pills, and godly medicine. So, this matter had to be kept secret as much as possible. Why didn't they go against the river and head to the source of the underground river? Simple, they couldn't go there. As long as they entered the underground river, they would soon encounter an invisible barrier that prevented them from continuing. This was discovered by the powerful warriors of spiritual ocean tier. Because the danger was unknown, they naturally wouldn't let those in gushing spring tier or weaker take the risk. In Rain Country, gushing spring tier martial artists were the backbone of their power, and spiritual ocean tier martial artists were the absolute elites, because there were really too few spiritual pedestal tier martial artists. Only the imperial family, the 8 great clans, and Huyang University would be able to produce such a martial artist. As for Tianyi, because it was an external force, it was naturally not counted. Moreover, the number of spiritual pedestal tier elites of the various great clans was pitifully small. All of them were in seclusion, attempting to break through to the flower blossom tier in order to break through the limit of their lifespan and become a true ultimate elite. Thus, even if there was a spirit tool here, it did not attract any spiritual pedestal tier elites. Unless, this place proved the existence of high-level cultivation techniques, godly medicine, and so on. Then, spiritual pedestal tier elites would definitely not be able to sit still. After Ling Han obtained all the information, he and the 2 girls went to the riverside. They could also use the net to catch the spirit tools, but it was strictly forbidden to directly make a move. They could also make a move, but they had to run to the downstream. This was because these spiritual tools would automatically activate and fly away as soon as they came into contact with humans. Therefore, this could only be tested at the last moment. The situation here was a little comical. One after another, the elites of Gushing Spring tier were like fishermen spreading out their nets, waiting for the spiritual tools to float past them so that they could catch them. Here it comes again, someone suddenly shouted. A knife floated in front of them. Chapter 121. If the saber was so heavy, why was it floating on the surface of the water? This was the wonder of spiritual tools. Some were as heavy as a mountain, while others were as light as a feather. What kind of martial art will have been infused into them? Ling Han did not pay much attention to it, but when his gaze swept over it and saw a mark on the hilt of the saber, his expression abruptly changed, and his entire body trembled. What's wrong? Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan asked at the same time. And when they realized that the other had synchronized with them again, the 2 girls both harumphed at each other. They also followed Ling Han's gaze, but when they discovered that the saber hilt was actually engraved with the image of a naked woman, they both felt embarrassed, and could not help but spit. As expected, men were all lustful. Even this youth, Ling Han, was no exception. Ling Han did not reply. He only stared at the saber, as if flowers had sprouted from it. In his previous life, he had accepted a total of 4 disciples. 2 of them learned alchemy from him, while the other 2 learned martial arts from him. Of the 2 who learned martial arts from him, one was called Chen Rui Jing, and the other was called Jiang Yufeng. Of the 2, Chen Rui Jing was serious and mature, while Jiang Yufeng was extremely lively, and boasted of himself as a playboy. Jiang Yufeng had a strange hobby. He liked to engrave the image of a naked woman on his weapons, and he was most proficient in saber techniques. This was the spiritual tool that Jiang Yufeng had used before. Although Ling Han had never seen this saber before, there were definitely not many people in this world who would engrave the image of a naked woman on a saber. Moreover, that person had to be at least in the deity transformation tier, which was even rarer. He was almost certain that it was only that abnormal disciple of his. Most importantly, Ling Han could recognize Jiang Yufeng's drawing style. There was definitely no mistake about this. After 10,000 years, he naturally knew that his 4 disciples must have long since died of old age. Thus, after his rebirth, he did not think too much about it. People, after all, had their own destiny. But the weapon that his disciple had used had floated out from an underground river, and it was even with the other spiritual tools. This caused countless doubts to arise in Ling Han's mind. Why? Why is Jiang Yufeng's weapon here? Ling Han focused his eyes. This saber was severely damaged. The blade was full of nicks, and the head of the saber was broken. However, the material of this saber was indeed of the highest quality. After 10,000 years, it was still as shiny as water, without any signs of rust. From this, it could be deduced that Jiang Yufeng must have experienced a desperate battle, where even his spiritual artifact had been destroyed. And to Jiang Yufeng, who loved sabers as much as his life, even if his battle saber was damaged, he would still carefully bring it back to bury it. But now, it had floated out with the flow of the river. An ominous premonition instantly surged in Ling Han's heart. Could it be that Jiang Yufeng had met with misfortune? But it should be known that in his previous life, it wasn't just him, even his 4 disciples were all pill jars. Following him, the strongest alchemist in history, they kept on popping pills to advance their cultivation, and their strength rose rapidly. At that time, although Jiang Yufeng had yet to break through to the heaven tier, he had still reached the deity transformation tier. Jiang Yufeng believed that as long as he was given another 100 or 200 years, breaking through to the heaven tier would definitely not be a problem. Moreover, they are 4 fellow disciples. If Jiang Yufeng met with a life-or-death crisis, how could the other 3 just stand by and watch? Could there be any problem that the 4 of them could not solve even if they joined hands? What had actually happened? Ling Han suddenly felt a strong urge. He wanted to enter the source of the underground river and see if he could find some clues. It's mine! It's mine! Everyone moved. Because this saber was severely damaged, the spirit of the weapon had probably been extinguished, and its power was not obvious. It was easily captured by the fishing net, and thus caused everyone to fight over it. That was a spiritual tool, even if it was damaged, it still had a very high research value. If one could discover the intent of martial art within it, then it would definitely allow one's own power to advance by leaps and bounds. Ling Han's eyes turned cold, and he said, "This saber is mine." Everyone paused slightly, and then burst out laughing. Wasn't that right? A brat in Poly tier actually dared to fight over the saber with them, elites of Gushing Spring tier. But laughing aside, they immediately started fighting again. There were no rules here, whoever managed to get their hands on the saber could keep it. Ling Han gave a long shout, and charged into the ring of battle. How dare you! Those elites of Gushing Spring tier were all furious. A mere Poly tier actually dared to fight over the saber with them? The world of martial art had a strict hierarchy, just like alchemists. When a yellow-grade low-level alchemist met a yellow-grade medium-level alchemist, he would have to bow respectfully, acting like a junior. And in front of Gushing Spring tier, Poly tier cultivators had to act like obedient grandsons. They didn't even have the right to stand together, let alone fight over the saber together. Get lost! One of them struck out with his palm, pushing towards Ling Han. Gushing Spring tier cultivators could release their origin power, and their destructive power would increase by countless times. Thus, even if he didn't use his full power, this strike was still extremely terrifying for Ling Han. Ling Han! Lu Yutong cried out in shock, and hurriedly leapt out, wanting to save Ling Han. But she had just moved when Lu Bucheng cut over and pressed down on her shoulder, forcefully restraining her. The 9th layer of Gushing Spring tier against the 1st layer of Gushing Spring tier, this was a crushing defeat without any suspense. Yet Ling Han only stared at the saber, channeling the indestructible heaven scroll with all his might. He used exiting cloud steps, moving as fast as lightning. Who? That Gushing Spring tier elite didn't think that Ling Han would have such a terrifying explosive speed, and in his carelessness, he didn't use his full power. Instantly, Ling Han dashed past. The others restrained each other, similarly not taking a junior of Poly tier seriously. Instead, Ling Han took advantage of the gap and got closer and closer to the saber. How dare you! After a moment of shock, these people were all enraged, and all struck towards Ling Han. This was bad. They were all in high-level Gushing Spring tier, and the weakest among them was in the 7th layer. Now that they all attacked Ling Han at the same time, the momentum was like a landslide or tsunami, extremely terrifying. Peng, Ling Han was unsurprisingly sent flying, But what made everyone speechless was that this guy actually took the opportunity to grab the saber and hold it in his arms. No matter, he's just a junior. Let's first decide who wins, then decide who this saber belongs to, one of the Gushing Spring tier elites said. Bullshit, competing in strength, is that fair? Then I'll invite my clan's ancestor to compete in strength with you. How about first come, first served? Whoever gets the saber, that's what everyone agreed. How did it become a competition of strength? We're only in Gushing Spring tier, and if it's a competition of strength, it's not us. Why don't we do it this way? We'll draw lots, and it belongs to whoever draws it. Everyone made a ruckus, but they didn't notice that Ling Han's body shook, and he slowly sat up. Everyone had a powerful background, so in the fight, no one dared to kill. It was precisely because of this that Ling Han had the chance to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. But even so, under the simultaneous attacks of so many elites, he still broke quite a few bones, and his internal organs were damaged. His injuries were extremely severe. Normally, he could only be carried away to recuperate, and wouldn't be able to walk for at least a dozen days. But he still had a drop of indestructible true fluid in his body. After cultivating the body of dead tree, one could condense a drop of indestructible true fluid, and the use of indestructible true fluid was to heal injuries. No matter how severe the injury was, as long as it still had a breath left, it could instantly heal. This was the terrifying aspect of the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Chapter 122. With a thought from Ling Han, this drop of indestructible true fluid instantly dissolved like a sweet dew, nourishing every part of his body. His damaged internal organs and broken bones were all healing at a terrifying speed. With Ling Han's talent, he had spent 10,000 years to comprehend the first layer of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, so how could this drop of indestructible true fluid not be awesome? It was practically regenerating flesh from the dead, and could even be called an exceptional precious medicine. Someone noticed that Ling Han had sat up straight, and couldn't help but look surprised. They were all clear that they definitely hadn't used a killing blow just now, but with so many people attacking together, it was enough to severely injure Ling Han. It couldn't be helped, this brat didn't know what was good for him, so it could be considered a lesson. But this brat actually climbed back up so quickly, it was practically shocking. How was this possible? Could it be that this brat was wearing some kind of precious armor that could dissolve the attacks he received? That should be the case, or else how could there be a second possibility? Brat, hand over the treasured saber, it's not something you can have, a middle-aged man shouted. Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes. The indestructible true fluid had already come into full effect, and his injuries were already more or less healed. He didn't answer, but instead infused his divine sense into the treasured saber in his hand to activate the spirit within. He wasn't stupid. Indestructible true fluid could heal once, but it definitely couldn't heal a second time. He dared to snatch food from the tiger's mouth because he wanted to revive this treasured saber, so how could mere Gushing Spring tier martial artists stand a chance? He was Jiang Yufeng's master, and the latter's martial art was taught by him. The two were of the same origin, so there was a high possibility that he could use the treasured saber that Jiang Yufeng had left behind. This was a risk, but he couldn't care less. How dare you, Junior, you dare not answer me. The middle-aged man who spoke before was furious. The people here were either from the imperial family or the descendants of the 8 great clans. They were all arrogant people, so how could they tolerate a junior putting on airs in front of them? He moved, and his origin power took shape, forming a giant palm that grabbed towards Ling Han. Li Yuan, you're dreaming. Someone immediately tried to stop him. He wasn't trying to help Ling Han, but he was afraid that Li Yuan would use this as a pretext to steal his treasured saber. Bastard! Li Yuan was indeed thinking this way. Naturally, he was enraged by the other party's obstruction and couldn't help but fight. Brat, hand over your treasured blade. Another person tried to snatch it away. It's mine. Mine. The group battle started again. Everyone was fighting to grab Ling Han. Capturing this kid was equivalent to having a treasured blade. As for Ling Han's own strength, they had completely ignored it. He was merely a poly level 5 kid. All of you, have you had enough? Ling Han suddenly stood up. His eyes swept over the crowd, and there was an awe-inspiring might in them. Everyone was shocked. It was as if the person standing in front of them wasn't a poly-realm martial artist, but a supreme expert who was countless times stronger than their own patriarch. In front of him, they were indescribably insignificant. However, they immediately came back to their senses. He was just a little brat. How could he make them feel like this? This was too embarrassing. Hand over your treasured blade. Li Yuan attacked, grabbing at Ling Han. Get lost. Ling Han slashed with his saber. Shua, a dazzling saber ray streaked past like a shooting star. Pooh! Li Yuan instantly staggered backwards, clutching his chest with one hand. Blood seeped out from between his fingers, and his face instantly turned pale. What? Everyone else was shocked. One had to know that Li Yuan was in the 9th layer of Gushing Spring tier, yet he was wounded by a single strike from Ling Han. How could they accept this? Treasured blade, it must be the treasured blade showing its might. However, it wasn't that they hadn't obtained damaged spirit tools before, but every single one of them was as good as dead. Their value lay in the martial art intent engraved on them, but Ling Han had just obtained this treasured blade and it showed its might. How inconceivable was this? Ling Han stood with his saber and said, "You guys had a good time beating me up just now, didn't you?" Hiss, everyone couldn't help but take a step back. Who would have thought that a junior in the 5th layer of Poly would suddenly have the ability to threaten a high-level Gushing Spring tier martial artist? Ling Han wouldn't be polite. He pounced forward, the treasured blade in his hand continuously spitting out saber ray. This power was not something a Gushing Spring tier martial artist could block. As the saber ray streaked past, everyone was easily sent flying. How is this possible? This brat can actually revive spirit tools. I don't believe that all spirit tools that can be picked up have their spirits extinguished. Even powerful warriors of spiritual ocean tier can't activate its might. How could a mere brat in Poly tier be able to use the might of a spirit tool? Everyone cried out in shock. There were 120 who didn't believe it. But so what if they didn't believe it? Now, they could only be beaten up by Ling Han. They all screamed. Just now, Ling Han had been heavily injured by them, and now the tables had turned. How could he be merciful? Saber ray streaked past, torturing these people like they were his grandsons. Lu Bucheng's face twitched in anger. Thankfully, he had moved to stop Lu Yutong just now and didn't participate in the group fight. Otherwise, it would definitely be difficult for him to escape. Being trampled on by a junior was too embarrassing. But was this brat a monster? How could he use an ancient spirit tool? After Ling Han beat up Li Yuan and the others until they wanted to cry, he stared at Lu Bucheng for a while. When Lu Bucheng felt a chill in his heart, he finally lowered the hilt of the saber and sighed inwardly. This saber was too heavily injured. The spirit had long since died, and only a sliver of consciousness was left. He had only activated this sliver of consciousness by relying on the willpower of martial art that he had inherited from Jiang Yufeng, but it would completely dissipate after a few uses. At that time, aside from being a little sharper, this saber would be no different from a normal weapon. Ling Han, are you alright? Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan went up to greet him at the same time. How could this brat be alright? Didn't you see that the others were almost going to shit from being tortured? Lu Bucheng ridiculed inwardly. Ling Han had a lot on his mind. He only nodded at the two girls, and then took the saber and returned to his own tent. Although he had injured so many people, it was very normal for people to be injured in fights over treasures. Moreover, with Wu Songlin's face there, who would dare to say anything? Moreover, a large group of Gushing Spring tier martial artists couldn't even defeat a 5th layer Poly, so how could they have the nerve to talk about revenge? Ling Han sat in his tent, placed the treasured saber on his lap, and observed it closely. If the spirit had not died, with his current strength, he would not be able to control this saber at all. It would only need to release a tiny bit of its aura to kill him. Now, however, he had the chance to study it carefully. Jiang Yufeng had broken through to heaven tier. Ling Han was the first to confirm this, because the willpower of martial art that was branded on the saber had reached a level that was on par with his own in his last life. Then, there was no doubt that this was a spirit tool that Jiang Yufeng had forged after breaking through to heaven tier. But the weapon of heaven tier had been damaged in a fierce battle, and even the spirit of the weapon had died. What kind of enemy had Jiang Yufeng encountered? Chapter 123. When they returned to Huyang Academy, Ling Han and Lu Yutong parted ways. He had just returned to his own courtyard when he was nagged by Lu Ru'er. "You're such a failure as a landlord, you didn't even prepare food for us," she said angrily. Ling Han's expression involuntarily became strange, and he asked, "Don't tell me you guys don't know how to cook." Lu Ru'er's almond-shaped eyes instantly widened, and she blurted out, "How did you know?" "I can tell just by looking at your incompetent appearance." Ling Han sighed. This pair of assassin sisters was really too much of a failure. They were not good at killing people, and did not even know how to cook. They were really too incompetent. "Hein, who are you calling incompetent?" Lu Ru'er's expression was instantly filled with indignation. "When my cultivation has recovered, I will definitely beat you up." Ling Han could not help but laugh in spite of himself and said, "Then why would I still keep you two enemies?" I've been short on money recently, so I'll just report the information about these two criminals. I should be able to get quite a bit of reward money from them." Lu Ru'er's beautiful face instantly paled, and she exclaimed in shock, "You're trying to scare me. Is that so?" Ling Han crossed one leg over the other, putting on an expression of profound mystery. Lu Ru'er could not decide what to do. She had always lived under the protection of her elder sister, so there was absolutely no need for her to worry about the wickedness of others. Now that she had to face Ling Han, who had lived two lives on his own, she was naturally being played around by him. "Come, sing a little song for me. If you sing well, I'll let you go," Ling Han said with a smile. Only now did Lu Ru'er realize that Ling Han was purposely trying to scare her. She could not help but pat her perky breasts, and said, "You really are a bad person." But she immediately raised her head, and said, "All right, I'll sing a song. However, it's not that I'm afraid of you, but rather that I haven't sung for a long time, and my throat is itchy." She began to sing softly, and the sound of the song was mellow, moving one's heart. Ling Han nodded internally. This girl was a bit muddle-headed, but she was actually quite good at singing. She had really chosen the wrong profession. So noisy. Hunyo was startled awake by the song, and glared at Lu Ru'er with a displeased gaze, her ferocity completely exposed. Lu Ru'er was very displeased, and said, "Such a beautiful song, and you actually say it's noisy? You really don't have the slightest bit of elegance in you." "Hein." Hunyo glared at her, unconvinced. The two girls glared at each other, looking as if they were going to stare at each other until the end of time. Ling Han yawned, stood up, and walked towards the bedroom to sleep. "Xiao." Hunyo immediately leaped up and hung onto Ling Han's body. Then, she turned around and made a face at Lu Ru'er. What a failure, she actually couldn't even handle a little child. Lu Ru'er grabbed at her hair in distress. A great assassin actually couldn't even win in a battle of gazes with a little girl. Was she really suitable to be an assassin? When he woke up, the eastern sky had just begun to brighten. Ling Han sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. He had deliberately woken up earlier now, so that he wouldn't have to run all over the place to cultivate with Hunyo. Not bad, there are still 3 more days before I can break through to the 8th layer of element gathering tier. Ling Han revealed a smile. What he desired the most now was to break through to Gushing Spring tier and explore the secrets of the Black Tower. At this time, the sun had already risen. Ling Han woke Hunyo up, and though the little girl was very unwilling, she still began to cultivate at Ling Han's request. Hunyo's potential was extremely terrifying, and her future achievements might not be inferior to his. Ling Han prepared breakfast, and this made him very depressed. In the past, he only had one little girl, so be it, but now that he had two big girls, he still had to cook. There was really no justice in this world. At this moment, there was a knock on the main door. Who was it this time? Ling Han walked over and opened the door. It was actually Jin Wuji. Why has this guy come here? Brother Jin, why have you come so early? Ling Han said with a smile. Jin Wuji smiled bitterly and said, Brother Ling, I want to ask you for a favor. What kind of favor? Ling Han asked. He did not take on everything himself. Jin Wuji hesitated for a moment, then said, I wonder if Brother Ling is able to reserve a seat in the Cherishing Flower Pavilion? Ling Han could not help but cast a strange look at Jin Wuji. Could it be that this guy had an agreement with Lady Yen? He had just received the Cherishing Flower token yesterday, and today, someone had already asked him to help reserve a seat in the Cherishing Flower Pavilion. Brother Ling, I have no other choice. You know a lot of people, and I am really at my wit's end. That's why I am shamelessly asking for your help, Jin Wuji said with a sigh. Ling Han smiled and said, What exactly is going on? Why do you need a seat in the Cherishing Flower Pavilion? If I tell you, don't laugh at me. Jin Wuji actually blushed. Ling Han said seriously, I definitely won't laugh at you. Jin Wuji organized his thoughts, and began to tell his story. As it turned out, a year ago, he had met the daughter of a small clan in the imperial city. Her name was Jiang Fei Yen. The two of them were in love with each other, and had already reached the stage where they were discussing marriage. However, the Jin clan was a great clan in the Yuan city, but in the imperial city, it was only equivalent to the level of a small clan. Moreover, this was the territory of the emperor, so the people here naturally felt that they were superior to others. The Jiang clan was not satisfied with Jin Wuji, their future son-in-law, and had always wanted to separate this young couple. Thus, Jin Wuji had been racking his brains, trying to change the way the Jiang clan treated him. Treating everyone in the Jiang clan to a meal at the Cherishing Flower Pavilion was undoubtedly an extremely good idea, because the threshold to enter the Cherishing Flower Pavilion was too high. If one wanted to reserve a table, they would at least need to be from a mid-tier clan. But the problem was, he was currently only in Element Gathering tier. Even if he had broken through to Gushing Spring tier, how could the Cherishing Flower Pavilion pay him any heed? In the recent few days, the Jiang clan had the intention of marrying Jiang Fei Yen off to the 7th young master of a mid-tier great clan. Thus, Jin Wuji really had no other choice, so he came to try his luck at Ling Han's place. After all, Ling Han had just arrived in the imperial city, and he had already become acquainted with Wu Songlin's disciple, so it was even more likely that he would be a guest of Grandmaster Wu. Thus, even if Ling Han could not reserve a table at the Cherishing Flower Pavilion, he could still use Wu Songlin's connections. When he heard this, Ling Han could not help but laugh loudly, and said, I had never thought that Brother Jin would be such a sentimental person. Brother Ling, I said I wouldn't laugh, Jin Wuji sighed endlessly, his face filled with distress. Ling Han still laughed, and patted Jin Wuji's shoulder, saying, Brother Jin, I am indeed unable to reserve a table at the Cherishing Flower Pavilion, but, when Jin Wuji heard the first part of Ling Han's words, he had already looked disappointed, but there was another twist at the end, causing his heart to involuntarily beat faster. Brother Ling, do you have any ideas? I can't reserve a normal table, but what about a side courtyard? Ling Han said with a smile. Pooh! Jin Wuji instantly spluttered. If one wanted to reserve a table at the Cherishing Flower Pavilion, one had to have the ability or background of Spiritual Ocean tier. For example, a direct descendant of a middle-class clan would be able to head to the Cherishing Flower Pavilion to reserve a table. However, one had to make a reservation in advance, because the business of the Cherishing Flower Pavilion was really too good. If one did not make a reservation in advance, it would be impossible to get a table. And if it was a side courtyard, then one had to have the ability and background of spiritual pedestal tier to be qualified to reserve a table there. Brother Ling, you're not joking, are you? The surprise was too great, and Jin Wuji's voice was trembling. Chapter 124. In his previous life, Ling Han had ventured deep into many ancient sites, and some of them had the light of God. Above the heaven tier was the shattering void tier. Legend had it that when the shattering void tier was perfected, one could shatter the void and become a god. Thus, the means set up by shattering void tier elites were called the light of God. In his previous life, in order to find a way to break through to the shattering void tier, Ling Han could be said to have searched all ancient sites, so he had seen many of these light of God. Legends were mostly unreliable. According to his speculation, the light of God wasn't set up by a shattering void tier elite, but rather the divine light emitted by the remains of such an elite. Thinking up to this point, Ling Han couldn't help but be moved. Could it be that the birth of a shattering void tier elite triggered the siege of Jiang Fengyue and the others? A shattering void tier elite's display of invincible might caused countless heaven tier elites to die, so it wouldn't be strange. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that many heaven tier elites discovered the grave of a shattering void tier elite, and in order to fight over his remains, a great battle erupted. In the end, there were no casualties, and even their spiritual tools were destroyed. In comparison, Ling Han would rather believe the former. Young friend, do you have a way to break it? Zhao Wushui asked. Yes. Ling Han nodded. If it was any other restriction, he really couldn't do anything, but it was the light of God. In his previous life, he had broken it countless times. This had nothing to do with cultivation, but what he needed were materials. What? Zhao Wushui and the others exclaimed at the same time. Zhao Wushui had only asked casually, and didn't expect Ling Han to really be able to break it. He never thought that Ling Han would give them an unexpected answer. Really? Hearing him say so, many people became suspicious. After all, Ling Han's cultivation was only at the poly tier, too weak. It's up to you whether you believe it or not, but if you want me to break this seal, I need some materials. Get them for me, and I can immediately break the seal, Ling Han said. Young friend, please tell us, what materials do you need? Zhao Wushui asked. Ling Han opened his mouth and named a bunch of materials, making Zhao Wushui and the others' faces turn green, and some even spit fire. This was going to make them bankrupt. I will remove the seal when you bring me the materials. If you have not obtained them, then do not come and disturb me. After Ling Han tossed out these words, he turned around with the two women, leaving the dozen or so old men looking at each other in dismay. What do you guys think? Can this brat's words be trusted? Zhao Wushui broke the silence. Since he's Master Wu's representative, I don't think he's talking nonsense. But this kid is only 16 or 17 years old. Does he really have such ability? Maybe he is. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become Master Wu's representative. Everyone, there's no need to fret. The materials that this kid needs are so many, and they're so precious. It's not something that we can make a decision on. It's better to immediately send a messenger bird back to the imperial capital and report to the ancestors. That's true. They all nodded and immediately used messenger birds to contact the imperial capital after returning the way they came. Messenger birds were a kind of demonic beast. After training, they could be used as messengers. Their speed was ridiculously fast, and they could fly a few thousand miles in a single day. Thus, on the second day, they received a reply, telling them to agree to Ling Han's request. Every clan would send out a powerful warrior of spiritual pedestal tier to personally escort the materials. After all, this batch of materials was too precious. It was likely that even the national treasury would be emptied. A mere 4 days later, a few powerful figures of spiritual pedestal tier arrived, delivering the materials that Ling Han needed. Little brat, you're so young, but you know quite a lot. An old man who looked kind and amiable came to Ling Han's tent, a friendly smile on his face as if he was looking at his own grandson. But Lu Yutong revealed a shocked expression. This old man was the ancestor of the Li clan, and his name was Li Zongyi. He was a genuine spiritual pedestal tier warrior. Don't look like he was kind and amiable, but in truth, this old man was cruel and merciless. In the imperial capital, he was famous for killing, and when he was young, his hands were stained with who knew how much blood. Now that he was older, he spent more time on breaking through to the flower blossom tier, which was why his fierce reputation was somewhat restrained. Only those of the older generation knew of this great god of death. Ling Han laughed and said, "I have learned a wide variety of things, and have dabbled in a little of everything." The light of God was not something that could be broken through with brute force. Even powerful warriors of heaven tier could do nothing about it. Thus, Ling Han had tried many methods in his last life, and finally developed a method that could open a door on the light of God. It's good to be young. There's plenty of time, and you can learn anything, unlike me, who already has one foot in the coffin. If I close my eyes tonight, I don't even know if I'll be able to open them again tomorrow morning, Li Zongyi said with a smile. However, his laughter was a little frightening, causing goosebumps to rise on both Lu Yutong and Li Xichan's skin. However, Ling Han did not mind at all. In his last life, he was a powerful warrior of heaven tier, so it would be a joke for him to be frightened by a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. Please return. This junior needs to make some preparations. I'll be done in about a day's time and break through that restriction, Ling Han said. Li Zongyi could not help but be surprised. This brat actually dared to ask him to leave. However, he had a request to make now, so he really did not dare to refuse. He could only shuffle his behind and leave the tent. Phew, the old man has finally left. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief, and hurriedly rummaged through the large amount of materials to find a few sets of precious medicinal ingredients, and immediately began to concoct alchemical pills. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan's faces were completely numb. They felt that Ling Han had abused his authority for personal gain, and falsely reported a lot of materials to concoct alchemical pills for them. Daring to have designs on the Rain Country royalty and the 8 great clans, Ling Han was probably the only one who dared to do so. Of course, if an alchemy emperor like him were to make a move, how could he not give some compensation? Ling Han worked at full speed, and did not rest for a whole day and night, concocting a large amount of alchemical pills. When the next morning arrived, he laughed mischievously, and threw a bottle of alchemical pills to Lu Yutong and Li Xichan respectively, and said, "This is your hush money and compensation." Previously, the two girls had been assisting him the whole day, sorting out the medicinal ingredients and such. Otherwise, Ling Han would really be too busy. For transformations pill, ancient clear pill. Li Xichan's beautiful eyes swept over the pills, and she immediately cried out in surprise. Her beautiful face was filled with shock. There is actually someone in this world who can concoct such a pill. What for transformations pill, ancient clear pill? Lu Yutong did not understand alchemy, and her face was filled with confusion. They are both spiritual pills that increase cultivation level, and their effects are 10 times better than the same type of alchemical pills that exist now. However, the 4 transformations pill is for gushing spring tier martial artists, while the ancient clear pill is for poly tier martial artists, Li Xichan explained. This time, Lu Yutong's beautiful face also changed. 10 times the effect, what kind of concept was that? She could reach the 9th layer of gushing spring tier within a year, and begin to break through to spiritual ocean tier. Just thinking about a 20-year-old spiritual ocean tier martial artist was enough to make her feel like fainting. Ling Han laughed mischievously. 10 times the effect was something that other people had concocted. The pills concocted by him would at least have an effect of 13 stars, and an additional 30% effect would be at least. He would not boast about that, lest he would scare the two girls to death. Chapter 125. Ling Han didn't have the slightest hint of a good guy. Since he was asked to open the light of God, then how could he not take the chance to gain some benefits? On the other hand, to ask a heaven-tier elite to act, this little bit of reward was really too little. "Let's go, don't make them wait too long, it's not polite," he said. The two girls instantly rolled their eyes. In reality, he had been concocting pills for the whole day and night, so how could he have made any preparations? He was the one who made them wait for nothing, and he still had the face to say that. What a scoundrel. The three of them walked out of the tent. Those spiritual pedestal-tier old monsters had been waiting for a long time, but old monsters were old monsters after all. There was no impatience on their faces, and they were all smiling. All of them are old foxes, scheming and sly. Ling Han ridiculed in his mind as he said, "I'm sorry for making you wait so long. Young friend, you've worked hard." Those spiritual pedestal-tier old monsters said with a smile. "Then let's go." Ling Han went straight to the point. He'd reaped all the benefits, so he wanted to quickly reach the end of the underground river to see what was going on inside. All the old monsters were slightly surprised, because Ling Han was too calm. They were all spiritual pedestal-tier warriors, the strongest people in Rain Country. Any one of them could change the color of the mountains and rivers with a stomp of their feet. But now that they appeared together, Ling Han didn't even bat an eyelid, so how could they not feel strange? They didn't know that with Ling Han's strength in his last life, spiritual pedestal tier, they didn't even have the right to be his guard. The group once again arrived at the depths of the underground river, in front of the light of God. Ling Han began to arrange them. One after another, the materials were spread out in his hands like floating clouds and flowing water. They were so numerous that it was dazzling to the eyes, yet there was an indescribable sense of beauty to them, and they couldn't help but be immersed in it. I actually sensed a hint of beauty from this brat's technique. So you're the same, this brat is so strange, as if every move he makes is in harmony with nature. How can there be such a person? Could it be that there was a record in the ancient books that when one was born, comprehending the secrets of martial art was as easy as drinking water? Innate martial body. The old monster's eyes lit up. If Ling Han was really born with a martial body, he would definitely be a treasure. As long as they observed his movements every day, they would be able to gain insights into martial art. It could be said that he was a living spirit stone of martial art. This brat had gained Wusong Lin's appreciation, so it was not good to forcefully kidnap him. Why not marry him? As long as he was able to marry into the family, then he could legitimately allow Ling Han to live in his residence, and Wusong Lin wouldn't be able to say anything. Ling Han was completely unaware that he had suddenly become a hot steamed bun. He was focused on fiddling with the materials in his hands, and as he waved them out one by one, he actually broke a hole in the light of God, forming a door that could allow one person to pass through. He's really succeeded. The old monsters were all rendered speechless. They had personally tested the light of Heavenly God a few days ago, but how could they resist the might of the light of Heavenly God? They could only watch helplessly. They had never imagined that Ling Han would actually succeed. This naturally increased their desire to make Ling Han their son-in-law. An old monster was anxious and wanted to pass through immediately, but Ling Han stretched out a hand to stop him, saying, "Wait. Brat, what do you mean by this?" That old monster was a spiritual pedestal tier elite of the Qian clan, one of the 8 great clans. He was impatient and hot-tempered. He immediately glared at Ling Han, and an oppressive pressure instantly rolled out. Ling Han smiled faintly, retracted his hand, and said, "If you want to die, I won't stop you. Please." Hearing him say so, the old monster of the Qian clan didn't dare to act rashly, and said, "Didn't you already break through the barrier? It can only be said to be a little successful. Now, this door can allow normal people to enter, but body refining tier will be repelled. The stronger one is, the greater the repelling force. Forcibly passing through would only be seeking death," Ling Han said. So that was how it was. "Damn brat, you didn't say such a big thing earlier, you almost caused me trouble," the old monster of the Qian clan said embarrassedly, appearing a bit embarrassed. Ling Han smiled and said, "Didn't you notice that I still have so many materials that haven't been used up? Isn't this embezzlement? All the old monsters laughed loudly, while Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan ridiculed in their hearts. This guy was extremely daring, and had long been greedy. Ling Han continued to toss in various materials, causing the door to become even more stable. Now, body refining tier should be able to enter. And poly tier is also fine now. Gushing spring tier. Ling Han stopped abruptly, because he'd used up all the materials. He sighed, and said, Junior's ability is limited, and can only set up a door that can at most allow gushing spring tier warriors to pass through. Everyone was dumbfounded. Only gushing spring tier warriors could pass through. You did it on purpose, didn't you? That's right, Ling Han did it on purpose. At first, he wanted to limit the ability to pass through this door to poly tier, but thinking that it was too obvious, he increased it by a level. But on the other hand, the resources of Rain Country were limited, so even if he didn't have any selfish motives, the door he set up would at most allow spiritual ocean tier warriors to pass through. Only gushing spring tier? The old monsters all frowned. How about this, immediately send a message back and have all the gushing spring tier warriors of the clan come over, someone suggested. Behind this door, there could be a huge secret treasure, and everyone wanted to obtain it. In these few days, seal off this place, and no one is allowed to pass through, Li Zongyi said. That should be the case. Everyone was worried that someone would enter first and snatch away the good fortune, so they all agreed to seal off this place. Only when the prodigies of gushing spring tier arrived would they all enter. Little guy, you don't have any objections, right? Li Zongyi smiled at Ling Han. Of course not. Ling Han said with a smile, but, everyone, you have to hurry. This door can only be maintained for 10 days at most. Fuck, the old monsters all rolled their eyes. Then why didn't you say so earlier? They could have sent the prodigies of their clans over, and now they were in such a hurry, who knew how many people they could summon. The crowd once again retreated. Naturally, messenger birds flew out one after another to send news back to the imperial city. Ling Han cultivated peacefully in his tent. This was equivalent to robbing the 8 great clans and the imperial family, and concocting many precious alchemical pills that were enough for him to squander for a while. Robbing is so satisfying, he thought as he swallowed an alchemical pill. For days passed quietly, and young people arrived one after another. They were the younger generation of the 8 great clans and the imperial family, and they were either in gushing spring tier or poly tier. Obviously, many old monsters thought that there was a secret treasure hidden behind the door, and hoped that it would be obtained by the descendants of their clans. Naturally, the more people they sent, the better. On the 7th day, there were as many as 200 people of the younger generation who had arrived. The old monsters also felt that they could not stay any longer, because there were only 3 days left for them. Set off. Going to the third river. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.